Welcome back, everyone. It's a little after 7, and the regular meeting of the City Council will commence. Let's stand up, if you can, for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And Madam City Clerk, if you could proceed with the roll call.
Councilmember Chow.
Here.
Councilmember Moore.
Here.
Councilmember Wei.
Here.
Vice Mayor Fruin.
Here.
Mayor Mohan.
Here. Thank you. Mr. City Attorney, is there a closed session report?
There is no closed session report, Mayor.
Okay. And there are no ceremonial items either. Are there any postponements and orders of the day?
No, Mayor.
Okay, so we will go straight into oral communications. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons wishing to address the council on any matter within the jurisdiction of the council and not on the agenda for discussion, including informational items. The total time for oral communications will be limited to 1 hour, and individual speakers, depending on how many we have, will be limited to 3 minutes in general. But depending on how many people there are, I have the discretion to limit the time allowed to individual speakers. Do we know how many speakers there are, Madam City Clerk?
Yes, Mayor. I have 3 requests to speak in Community Hall, and I see 2 hands raised virtually requesting to speak.
Okay.
Okay, so we have Barry Chang, followed by Toby Levitt, followed by Councilmember Kitty Moore.
Okay, so I'm going to request Councilmember Kitty Moore, if you're going to speak as a member of the public, that maybe you could go and have a seat with the public and come up to the podium when it's your turn. Thank you. Who is our first speaker, Madam City Clerk?
So we have Barry Chang. Welcome, Barry.
Mayor and the Vice Mayor and the Council member. My name is Barry Chan. I'm here. I have 2 items to speak, so I submit 2 forms. So I get 6 minutes or I get 3 minutes? Just 3 minutes, okay. Yeah. Number 1 is there's an issue that a group called Mountain View Chinese Choir for senior, they want to post their flyer on the senior center bulletin board, but got denied. And in my opinion, that's no need to do that. It's a service to the community. The lady went to Sunnyvale, went to Mountain View, went to Nassau. They all allow them to put a flyer. They have an event coming up in May, and it's good for the senior, for the singing, performance. So I would like you guys to look into it to be more accommodate to the people's need, the service. That's number 1. Number 2, I still have 2 minutes. Okay, so I get plenty of time. Number 2 is pickleball. I don't know you guys play pickleball or not. Okay, I got approached to it. Then I went to this morning, and I play a little bit. And I look at the Memorial Park tennis court. Have 6 of them, and then 2 on close to this end is designated for pickleball. One is temporary, one is permanent. And then you look at it, the whole morning I look at it, the tennis court only have 1 group of people, 4 people playing. And then the pickleball has 40 people is playing, and then still have people waiting on the stage. And then they said because the city is not very accommodating, not helping them a lot, give them a lot of hard time. So that's the part I don't understand. I mean, we are here to serve people, and if this is a more popular item, why the city is not helping them? And besides that, it doesn't cost that much money. Just put small force for pickleball net, and then put in the line. So I don't understand. That's why I'm here to ask if mayor, vice mayor, and then the council member and the city manager, you guys can look it into it and just provide more service to the people, because pickleball is for all age, all group. I look at it this morning and I pray a little bit and I really like it. I'm thinking of going by and then do it myself too. Thank you.
Thank you, Barry. Next we have Toby Levitt, followed by Kitty Moore, followed by Rhoda Fry. Welcome, Toby.
Thank you. Whoops. Thank you. Hi, my name is Toby Levitt. I'm the Executive Director of the San Francisco Shakespeare Festival. I come to you soon after the Ides of March to let you know that sadly the efforts to secure sponsorship for this summer's Free Shakespeare in the Park at Memorial Park have fallen short, and that $23,000 is needed by the end of this month to save Cupertino's Free Shakespeare in the Park. Prospective supporters can email sfshakes@sfshakes.org or donate directly at sfshakes.org. Efforts to fundraise for this summer's Free Shakespeare in the Park production of The Tempest began last October. At that time, SF Shakes was charged with replacing the annual $30,000 in funding that had previously been received annually from the city of Cupertino and which are no longer available due to the city's present budget circumstances. While the Cupertino Library Foundation, the San Francisco Water District, and several individual donors committed their support, another $23,000 is needed by the end of this month to secure performances for this summer. I'm here to issue this final appeal for support because there is still time, and we are really hopeful that local heroes will step forward. Without this funding, we just can't cover the expenses of performing in Cupertino, and the company has now reached the deadline for signing contracts for this summer. There's tremendous community support for this popular program's performances. We regularly have capacity crowds in Memorial Park. We also leverage local philanthropic funding from regional funders, such as the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation, and national funding from the National Endowment for the Arts. I'm also here to share my sincere gratitude for 3 decades of support, collaboration, and partnership that we've been so fortunate to share with the city of Cupertino for, yes, really 3 decades. San Francisco Shakespeare Festival has been performing Free Shakespeare in the Park in the beautiful Memorial Park Amphitheater each summer since 1995. Madam Mayor, you shared a beautiful memory with me recently of serving on the city's Fine Arts Commission when it first recommended bringing Free Shakespeare in the Park to Cupertino 30 years ago. I'd also deeply like to thank the Parks Department. I'm proud of all that we've accomplished together. Sad to see such an amazing run likely come to an end. Grateful for your partnership and hopeful that enough people contribute at sfshakes.org. My inbox is open at sfshakes@sfshakes.org. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Toby. Next we have Kitty Moore, followed by Rhoda Fry, followed by Luis Sadati. Welcome, Kitty.
I think it's this one. I'm not really sure. Okay.
Yes, it's the
This one?
handheld. Yes.
Oh, okay. Thank you. So I am Councilmember Kitty Moore, representing myself only. If you look at your agenda, you'll see that there is a section called informational items. Looks like there are 4 under that heading. So you might be wondering why I'm pulling a speaker card on an informational item. The informational items are a new category started last year. They are intended to provide background information and routine reports to council members and the public without discussion by the council. So I'm a little unclear if I'm speaking as a council member or speaking as myself. I'm going with speaking as myself only to be safe. So I'm just a member of the public. And I would like to talk about our fiduciary duty as council members. Specifically with regards to this issue. As of January 2024, and this I learned from someone else's public records request because, as you know, I'm not allowed to make them. As of January 2024, the operating checking account had grown to $48 million without bearing any interest, and I would prefer to be speaking about this as a council member. There was a question about what our investment policy states and whether or not that money could be moved. I'd like to have that information clarified, because it looks like we can have the money put into certificates of deposit or money market mutual funds, actually 100% Treasury mutual funds, which we have some in the Chandler account. If you are not aware of the time value of money, you can read that in your free time. I think everyone here is. What if even 30 million of that had been invested over the past year? The 100% U.S. Treasury money market yield is 4.94%. We already have that in the Chandler account. The Monte Sereno City Council was presented with yields over 5% last July, and that council directed their money to be moved. How much would 30 million invested at 5% have earned us over the past year? $1.5 million, more than 10 times the cost of the 4th of July fireworks we canceled. Okay, I'm running down to 30 seconds. So here are a few issues. We don't need to look at that. When the remedy is more important. Please support agendizing this issue now. Have the council review the city financial policy and best practices, address the reporting to council format and the contents, consider forming a subcommittee to work with staff prior to coming to the council regarding reporting format and contents. Thank you.
Thank you, Kitty. Next we have Rhoda Fry, followed by Luis Sadati. Welcome, Rhoda.
Hi, good evening. First, a public service message, couple of them. Residents of Cupertino, if you're shopping for taxable items, shop Cupertino. And by the way, San Jose's sales tax rate is higher than ours. So if you're buying your spring picnic supplies, head over to Home Goods or Safeway on the Safeway on Homestead, not the one over by Bollinger, because that's in San Jose. Second, right here at 6:30 p.m. on Wednesday, March 27th, Supervisor Smithian will be holding his last Lehigh public meeting. Please do keep in mind that Lehigh has reserved the right to continue manufacturing cement, although without the use of its cement kiln. Also, the quarry is continuing to employ about the same number of people as it had in the past at the quarry with this new aggregate operation. Third, and here's the ask to you, I am asking that the city hire a specialized auditor. We have just heard from Councilmember Moore, and at other times, I believe that we've got upwards of $50 million in the bank that's not earning interest. That's just not okay. I'm really concerned about how our money is being managed, particularly because the city might be asking property owners to maintain city sidewalks and city trees. So let's buckle down and clean up. We've also refinanced our debt at a higher rate rather than at a lower rate. The sales tax income has been improperly stated. And of course, nearly a month ago, I came here because I was alarmed that our restricted below market rate affordable housing funds had been used for things that had nothing to do with it. And here is a spreadsheet that I have regarding that. Some was for used for a stipulated judgment. Others was used for the legal fees for the YIMBY lawsuit, and also the housing element, which just is not a good match. But another root cause I see here is that we are co-mingling expenses. We've got billings for YIMBY and housing element in the same bill. So if you go back, you'll never know how much we spent on legal fees for the housing element. And as you look through the description, some of those housing legal reviews might be legitimate BRMR expenses, but we just can't tell. Also, having gone back through some other previous expenses, there was things that were put into the fund like for Verizon bills. Why? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rhoda. Next, we have Luis Sadati. Welcome, Luis.
Hello. So I'm speaking on something that surprised me tonight. For a civilization to prosper, we all need to show the ability to follow rules and protocol. The council members have the ability to speak much more than the public. Council members also can speak to the city manager before the meeting, after the meeting, and also have special meetings before council where they can be informed on items, even before, so they can be fully informed and meet in council. The public only has the ability to speak for 3 minutes during oral communications or the public communications on items. I'm really flabbergasted that a particular council person would choose to speak, step out the dais, and then present as a resident. And because they've had plenty of time to talk and to communicate without taking up the residents' speaking time. And I really feel that this type of action has been called out by the grand jury with this particular council person specifically named, and yet this particular council person stepped off the dais twice rather than ever addressing any of the items the grand jury cited her on for showing micromanagement and not following proper protocol and procedure. So I really think it's very important that all council members, present, past, and in the future, show that they have the ability to follow procedures and the rules of conduct. Because if a council person does not exhibit the ability to follow the procedures, rules of proper conduct, then our city really is endangered by this type of action. I would like to beg this council to come up with some way of being more clear to the council as to what is resident and what is council feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, Louise. And we will move to those requesting to speak virtually. There were 5 hands raised before the cutoff. San R, Babu, Srinivasan, and Lisa are first. Welcome, San.
Good evening, Mayor Sheila and City Council. I wish to bring back to your memory the topic of hybrid meetings for commissions. It was highly unfortunate that this was agendized, and Council Member V suggested that this be moved or continued, and it was taken off from the opportunity to give input and has since not come back for resumption of hybrid meetings. I wish to remind you that the supplemental report of the Feb 6th Council meeting has the cost information. It costs an additional $70 per hour per meeting to have the hybrid option for commission meetings. I request you to please resume hybrid meetings for 3 commissions, namely the Parks and Rec, which is the second most attended after Planning Commission, followed by Bike and Ped, because it makes a number of critical decisions around our roads, followed by Public Safety Commission, which has a number of useful reports from the county sheriff and the county fire department. $70 per meeting, $70 per hour per meeting is assuming a 2-hour, or assuming, let's assume a 3-hour commission meeting is $210 per meeting at 3 commissions. That's $630. Even if you assume you had 10 of these meetings each, that's $6,300. I'm sure you can find $6,300 to fund and support the cause of stakeholder engagement which is one of your stated goals. Let me switch on the topic of stakeholder engagement to this new practice starting at 5:15 p.m. You are reducing your stakeholder engagement by starting at 5:15 p.m. Many, if not most of your attendee residents that are working population are unable to join at 5:15 p.m. It discourages the practice of participating in the first session, and it reduces the time for speakers as well as for council members. We just saw what was a fairly embarrassing attempt to wrap up by 6:45 p.m., reducing the input of council members. 5 minutes is already reduced time, 3 minutes is even more reduced time. And then we got down to 1 minute. And that is just not acceptable for important items. There is no reason to be starting at 5:15 p.m. except for closed session items. I request you to please keep up the stakeholder engagement goal and start the meetings at 6:45 p.m. so that you maximize participation of residents and do not reduce the speaking time for council members. Before I run out of time, I want to voice support for the tennis community of Cupertino. As a 40-year tennis player myself and an active patron of tennis in Cupertino, the courts are 100% utilized. We should not be competing with tennis and pickleball. Please enable pickleball courts at other locations, but not at the expense of tennis. Let's provide more things for.
Thank you, San. Next we have Babu Srinivasan, followed by Lisa, followed by Connie Cunningham. Welcome, Babu.
Hey, thanks for the opportunity to talk. I just echo the sentiments of the other speaker, Santosh. Became active only after this hybrid option came in place. Before that, I don't have the commitment or I don't have the time to attend in person. So no matter whatever is the cost, I don't want to get into that much detail, but getting disjoint or getting disengaged with the public should not be an option, whatever the cost is. So let us continue hybrids. Let us say, if you want an agenda item to be passed on, make it as a motion, put it in a bill, and keep up the words. We don't want things to be done on the fly. And like Santosh said, 5:15, impossible. For people who are working 8 to 5, 9 to 5, or 9 to 6, whoever it is zero engagement for you people. Or if that is the motto, you can put it in noon and you can just do it as you wish. You don't need public to be a witness. And just record it and pass it as one-way communication. But then that is not the city that is going to grow. Then it will see its own sunset. And the money mismanagement, whatever people talk, I think it's a blatant. You need to put your staff to do money management. If you need to cut cost, maybe you can look at the hierarchy. How many city managers, how many in legal, how many we need, or how many we can spare. Everywhere it is layoff. If you hear people get fired every day, so you should start thinking about and slimming down the city council itself. And for important matters, Mayor Sheila, we want your voice to be heard on what side you are. And especially the voting by lights, I think it doesn't give any idea about the city people, commission people stand up. So if you want vote to be called out, roll call, like in Senate, let us do that practice so that we get to know who is who and what is their stand, so that it helps us in re-electing or kicking them out. So that should be the way, and let us make that as a common thing. It should be like every city council member or everyone in this board is representing people of city of Cupertino, not just it's a given privilege. So always you are a people representative. Think about that, act in that way, and uphold city people's interest, not no other motto. Let us not get into that. We don't want to debate it. It should be in your ethics, and it should be trustworthy from the people. Thank you again. Have a good day.
Thank you. Next we have Lisa, followed by Connie Cunningham, followed by Srividya. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. I just want to, I hope the Shakespeare in the Park person is still there. I would encourage her to reach out to the school districts, Rotary, and potentially Chamber, and ask them to spread the word that you're looking for donations to keep this viable as free. And also, you know, people should be, I hear a lot of families go and it's a fun family time. Those families can be reached with the school district because they can send out blasts that a lot of people get. The city has a more limited audience and method of communicating. Well, I shouldn't have said it that way. Anyway, I think you'd be better off trying the school districts because I don't think a lot of people are going to watch what you said. So please do that. I would like to also request, wish I could say insist, but I can't, that commission meetings be hybrid and that definitely recording for Parks and Rec, if at a minimum, Parks and Rec. Because as I try to say, I'm a champion for transparency and I just see it being chipped away. There may have been some small improvements recently, but I question why they took so long and what the motivation is. So I hope it continues, but I hope it gets far more robust, because when I mentioned after this traffic study, if it's going to happen for Bollinger, which is fine for the purpose, but if you're not getting that information out to people later, and I'm talking, we used to have full on 10 or more round tables in that very building you're in right now with dozens of residents engaged in decisions like that. We're just not given that opportunity anymore. And that's a shame. It's a crime in a way. So hopefully that gets some traction. And lastly, I'd like to say that I'm a champion of transparency, like I said, and I appreciate and encourage any council member who can't speak on an agendized item to get information to the public about concerns, that they do it. If the city manager didn't think it was following the rules, no one would be able to do that from the dais. It is following rules. It's just having to create cleverness to be able to share your thoughts with the community, because talking to staff and having meetings there doesn't get the information to us. So it's a problem with the changes to the procedure.
Thank you, Lisa. Next we have Connie Cunningham, followed by Servidya. Welcome, Connie.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
So good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council members, City Manager. I want to read to you from my letter to the editor of the San Jose Mercury News that was published Sunday, March 17th. The headline they put on it was, "Development must take steps to protect birds." And it was I wrote in regards to the article that was in the San Jose Mercury News on February 22nd about the city okaying the new neighborhood plan on the site of an old mall. So to begin, I said, although I support the RISE project because of its promise of affordable housing, I am very disappointed that it does not include environmental protections for dark sky or bird-safe building design. Studies have shown millions of birds die each year from colliding with glass. Millions more are harmed because their night migration is disrupted by city lights. Cupertino is located on the Pacific Flyway. Birds as small as the yellow-crowned sparrow, well, actually the yellow-crowned sparrow itself, which is very small, migrates 3,000 miles to spend its winter here. The RISE will introduce glass and lighting in very tall buildings. Due to state law, the RISE is not required to comply with Cupertino's bird safety and dark sky ordinance. However, The RISE can voluntarily avoid elements that are hazardous to birds or to incorporate protective measures if such elements are included in the plan. And the RISE should do exactly that. I was so heartened that the editors of the San Jose Mercury News published that on a Sunday when most people get their Sunday papers. Get their papers. Thank you again for listening. I wanted to get it out to people who perhaps don't get the San Jose Mercury News in our audience here. Thank you.
Thank you, Connie. Next we have Srividya. Welcome, Srividya.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, council members. Thank you for this opportunity to share a couple of my comments with you all. So the first time I attended a city council meeting was back in November when some of us who are members of the sports center had come in as the future of the sports center was one of the items on the agenda that day. And I remember a lot of us felt very strongly and spoke very passionately. And occasionally when a speaker would speak something that you felt very strongly in agreement with, occasionally somebody clapped. And we were at that point told by the city attorney that it was not good form to do that, and he asked us to refrain because that could be intimidating for other speakers who might have a different point of view. So that's kind of how that meeting went. And in a subsequent city council meeting that I attended online, I noticed that the very same city attorney refused to answer a question that Councilmember Councilmember Chow put to him for an item on the agenda that she needed more information for, responding, "This is ridiculous. You might keep repeating yourself, but I'm not going to answer that," and flat out refusing to give Councilmember Chow the information she was looking for. So this really took me aback because if you are promoting an atmosphere where people will come in and participate, and if the democratic process is the one that we're respecting by giving everyone due respect and respectful etiquette being maintained in the meeting, that was not what I observed. I was very dismayed to see that. And I would like to see more decorum and better etiquette from all of the people involved, council members to each other, and also the city staff towards the council members, because they are elected representatives of the people. And if Council Member Chow or anybody else needs more information to make an informed decision, the city staff ought to be providing that, or it may not be at the meeting itself, it could be later, but I think there's a way of responding to things that shows respect and decorum for our city and the citizens of the city. My only other comment relates to tennis courts. I'm also a tennis player. I see myself playing pickleball at some point in my life. I would also like to see pickleball courts, but please not at the expense of tennis courts. Let's increase the recreational facilities that our citizens have by keeping the tennis courts as they are and providing other pickleball facilities in other places to those players. Thank you very much. I'll take myself off.
Thank you. Mayor, no further commenters?
That concludes the oral communication section of the agenda, and I want to thank everyone who took the time and made the effort to come and present their comments. Before I go anywhere, Councilmember Wei, you had a comment?
Brief comment of oral communication. So I have a question for staff from the one of the I don't know how to say it. It's maybe council member, maybe public. Okay, the $48 million. I don't think this is the first time we heard about it. Has it been answered?
I think we probably should. And this item is not on the agenda for discussion.
But it's clarification. Has it been answered by the staff? Just a clarification.
Yes, it has.
Okay, and the same thing is procedures to propose agenda items. Do we have a procedure for that for council members?
Yes, we do. It's in the policies and procedures.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Chow, you had a comment on the oral comments?
I have a question for the city attorney. Is it legal for a council member to make a public comment in a council meeting?
It's because the item is on the information calendar, it doesn't necessarily create Brown Act issues to make that comment. If it were not, then of course there would be a Brown Act issue for commenting on something that's not agendized.
Thank you. Since the council won't be able to discuss the information item, is the public comment the only time for a council member to raise an issue to the entire council?
I think apart from the agendizing it for discussion at a future meeting, but that remains an option.
So this is the only time?
Well, if you ignore the fact that it can be agendized for discussion at a future meeting, yes.
Yeah. So if a council member would like to raise concern so that the issue could be agendized, this is the only time they can raise the issue to the entire council, right?
2 council members can propose a future agenda item at any time.
Okay.
Councilmember Moore?
Okay.
Thank you. And I did request that this be agendized. I was looking for support.
So is this is not the time to do that, I would imagine. You have to propose the future agenda item. We have to get a second, and then it goes on the TBD, to be determined list, and then it'll come back to us. Am I right about the procedures, City Manager?
That is correct.
Okay. All right. We're still talking about oral communications, and we are done with that. So let's move on to consent calendar. There are 7 items. Madam City Manager, do you know if any item is being pulled?
Yes, Mayor. So item 4 and item 5 has been pulled by Councilmember Chow.
Okay. Since these are will probably have lengthy discussions, my thinking is that we should move both these before the action calendar. Is that okay? I'd like to make a motion to move items 4 and 5. Not to the end, but just before the action calendar. Do I have a second?
I'll second for discussion.
Okay, second for discussion.
I have a question.
All right, Councilmember Mayor. Wait.
Yes, are these 2 items have a time urgency to it? If it doesn't, I prefer them after the action because people are here for the action items.
Right. The plan is to get to the action item.
Right. So I would prefer we go to the action item first and put these 2 as our procedures manual that's suggested.
Okay. My thinking on that was that these would entail extensive discussion, and I did not think that the action calendar would need this much discussion as items 4 and 5, and hence my suggestion was to include it before the action calendar.
Yes,
but I'm completely open to
the mayor.
Whichever.
May I? That's exactly what I think. The action item probably take less time, and this takes more time. So let's put this after the action item. Through the mayor. I'm so sorry.
All right. Is there a second
theory
for Councilmember Way's suggestion to just stick with the process? Stick with the
point of order. I don't think without a motion, I believe they would just go. I don't believe Councilmember Way needs to make a motion in order for her suggestion to go forward.
Okay.
I'm confused. Okay.
So we are going to pull items 4 and 5, and it goes after the action calendar as it normally does. So we're not straying from our normal process.
You will need to remove your motion.
Hang on one second.
I withdraw my second.
Can you say that again?
I withdraw my second.
Oh, which is what?
Your motion to put this before the action item.
Yes.
You made a motion, I seconded, I'm going to withdraw that, because we just go with the regular.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Councilmember Moore?
I have a question of the city attorney. I do have some concerns about consent item 1, and I would like to if it's not too late, to pull that off of consent so that I can at least register a vote on that, because I don't concur with passing the entire group together.
So Councilmember Moore, unfortunately, the deadline to remove that from consent has passed. However, you can vote no on that item. You can vote no separately just on that item if you do not want to register, if you do not want to vote for it on the consent calendar. You don't have.
Okay, so I can basically register a vote that says like a verbal vote saying yes
no,
on this and this, and
yes
no on
this
that
and no on item 1. Yes.
Wonderful.
So I think that's probably the best way to address your concern at this point.
And rapidly. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, since we pulled 2 items off the consent calendar, do we have a motion to adopt the consent calendar for the items that are in place? Item number 1, 2, 3, 6, and 7. Is there a motion?
Would you like to take public comment?
Oh, I should.
Also, I just would like to take this opportunity just to make a note that for item 3, the March approval of the March 5th minutes, I did submit a desk item with a minor revision to page 1, and it was posted in the same location as today's agenda.
Okay, so we don't need to pull that.
Only if you so wish.
Good. Okay. All right. Yeah. Thank you for that clarification, Madam City Clerk. Okay. Before I do anything, let's go to public comments on items that have that are on the consent calendar. That is items number 1, 2, 3, 6, and 7.
Yes,
are there
Mayor.
any speakers, Madam City Clerk?
So I see one hand raised virtually. San R. I'll go ahead and call on you. Welcome, San.
Yes, good evening, City Council and Mayor Sheila. I would like to talk about the consent calendar item on the housing element. I'm not sure why this is on consent calendar, because the whole purpose of the housing element is for public engagement and to be able to hear council member deliberation as well as public discussion and public input on the housing element update. So it is concerning that the spirit, the intent is there, the spirit is there, but we are not seeing these items showing up on the action calendar to allow for public input and discussion. Specifically, I would wish to raise my concern about corner units being rezoned as multifamily with the density and setback bonus waivers that are offered for developers. This brings a lot of concern for what the density is going to be in the suburban lots, and particularly as we start looking at corner units.
Excuse me, Santosh, just a second. Is this is the member of the public allowed to debate this, since this is not really the significance of the report? Housing.
Right. This is not the 6 cycle housing element that is being adopted at this time. This is a report on our existing housing element. That's correct.
Okay. Santosh, did you hear that? So this is...
Okay, yeah, the distinction was lost on me, so I'm happy to yield my time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Babu Srinivasan, followed by Lisa. Welcome, Babu.
Mayor Sheila, I have a quick thing. Why you keep on changing the items or getting pulled in just because you have majority or second to nominate whatever you bring in? Again and again, as public, we see some city council members being mocked, and the agenda item, if it is not going to take time, let us go in whatever it is tabulated. I don't see any reason or any rush. And even the start, you postponed by 15 minutes. I was not happy, and I don't know how many people just ignored today's meeting because they all have their personal life, they have their time scheduled, and if a meeting needs to be scheduled and it is to be started at 6:45 for the public, I don't think even extending beyond 1 minute is fair. As Chow said, you could have continued the meeting for the public at 6:45 and continue to debate the item in that meeting. And you just want to mark again, Mr. Chow, I think this is not going well, irrespective of, in spite of people being again and again making comments in this podium and requesting everyone to respect each other, the same behavior continues. Maybe, I'm not sure, like how many people are echoing the same thing, like what I observe. I want to bring it out to everyone's knowledge or everyone's eyes to see this go, watch the recording again, where you can course correct yourself, and we want a better meeting to be conducted in future. And
excuse me, I'll have to interrupt you again. I apologize. But we are following a process here, and we are asking for public comments on consent calendar items which have not been taken off the consent calendar. So I'm not sure that was the right time to address
the thing is, what we are expecting as a public is the meetings to stick to the schedule as published. And
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get back to where we were. Are there any other public comments on items on the consent calendar that were not pulled this morning?
Yes, Mayor, next we have Lisa. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. So this may be an inappropriate time to say what I'm going to say, but I think this really needs to be said by someone, hopefully on the dais. There was discussion about talking on items, changing the agenda because it would take time to talk on blah, blah, blah. On informational items, it says right on the agenda, council nor members of the public.
Lisa, this actually is not related to the consent calendar, as the mayor stated.
But because we can't.
Okay, I'm going to call. Excuse me. Again, let me repeat. We are talking about requesting public comments for items that are on the consent calendar that were not pulled. Any other comments would not be appropriate at this time.
So I have one additional card for someone requesting to speak in Community Hall, and that is from Rhoda Fry. Welcome, Rhoda.
Obviously, it's confusing about what gets pulled, what doesn't get pulled, and I agree that I think that we should be able to pull informational items, but I'm going to ask a question about number one. As you can tell, I'm very concerned about checks and balances, and that we do things according to a process. And regarding agenda item 1, it appears to be a contract with a professional, and I think that it would be prudent for the city to follow procedures when hiring consultants and making sure that they have not been hired through other cities that have the same. Now I just forgot the name. One of those brain moments. Okay, help me, Mr. Morley. What? The retirement thing. Where do you get your retirement from? Your A something. PERS. CalPERS. Thank you. That's the word. Okay, I don't say it every day. CalPERS. Spell it. Okay. So to make sure that when we hire people in, it's great to hire people who have experience in industry. However, there can be some conflicts if we do hire people who are already retired under CalPERS. So I think that we need to make sure that that we've got things. Did I get my message across? Sorry about this. That when we do bring in people, that it's clean, that the city is protected, and that potentially a retired CalPERS employee is also protected. The other issue is that there are rules in comparing if we do hire somebody who has been retired under CalPERS, that the salaries that we pay them as a consultant are on a par with what we're paying what we would pay a similar person employed by the city. So I hope that we can get those safeguards in place, and that's it. Thank you very much, and sorry for being extraordinarily disorganized. CalPERS, I'm going to say it in my dreams. Thank you, Mr. Morley.
Thank you, Rhoda. Mayor, no more requests to speak on the consent items.
Okay, so we are done with public comments on consent calendar items. And we are moving items 4 and 5 to the end, like we always do. And I'd like a motion to approve the consent calendar, items number 1, 2, 3, 6, and 7. Councilmember Chow, you had a comment?
I guess first is I would also like item 1 to be voted separately from the other items. But first I have a question. Could the city attorney clarify that the annual progress report for housing element, what's the purpose?
Through the mayor, I can take that question.
I know what's that, but I think the member of the public need to know that.
So you don't want me to answer? Okay.
Please answer. Yeah.
So this is an annual obligation that the state has required for any housing element. So we have to respond to HCD by April 1st.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Actually, I have some question on item 1, but since this wasn't polled, I read this item much earlier, so I'm not allowed to ask them right now, right?
I'm happy to discuss those with you after the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. Let's get back. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendars item 2, 3, 6, and 7?
And 1.
I so moved.
No.
Motion, right? Run separately.
Oh, okay. We are voting on 1 separately.
Mm-hmm.
So items 2, 3, 6, and 7 together. Is there a motion?
Through the mayor?
Yes.
I move we approve number 1, 2, 3, 6, and 7.
Okay,
Second.
Is there a second? Okay, let's vote by lights.
Pardon. Sorry.
Hang on. Councilmember Moore, you had a comment?
Mayor, I would recommend a voice vote for this vote because I think we may have at least one council member who wishes to vote no on one of the consent items, and I think we should accommodate that request.
Okay, so a voice vote?
Yes.
And not by lights, is that what you're saying?
That's my recommendation, yeah.
Shouldn't we vote them separately?
No.
I suppose you can, but this is the procedure.
Right?
This is the procedure I've seen used before, and so I would recommend. I would recommend voting by voice, and if you choose not to approve an item on the consent calendar, you can register that by voice.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So we will take a voice vote on the approval of the consent calendar, other than the 2 items that have been pulled.
Councilmember Chow?
I would like to abstain from item 1 because I have some concerns that haven't been answered. So then I'd like to vote yes on the other items.
Councilmember Moore?
Thank you. I'd like to vote no on item 1. I have concerns about the exemption and total build, and I would like to vote yes on 2, 3, 6, and 7. Thank you.
Councilmember Way?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Fruin?
Aye.
Mayor Mohan?
Aye.
The motions carry with Chow abstaining on 1 and Moore voting no on 1.
Okay. Moving on. There are no public hearings, so let's move to the action calendar. As was suggested, and is there, this is to review city-owned properties. Is there a staff presentation? I think there is. Go
there
ahead,
is. Mayor, thank you very much.Tt Morley, Assistant City Manager. I have a brief staff report for you. I'll start out by reminding you that city-owned properties was a work program, or is a work program item, and so we're working through that. We do have several properties in play, and I'll cover those as we go. Through the course of this presentation, I've highlighted a number of properties of interest, as I'm calling them in the presentation. These are also identified in the staff report with a short discussion. All of the other properties that the city owns are listed. They are in the attachment, and those are for your reference. So I'll start with the Byrne Avenue property, and each of the properties is handled pretty much the same way with a quick map of the property, and then an image just to remind you of what it looks like. Byrne we procured a while ago in order to carve off a piece of the property for right-of-way. That work has been done, and that's the red box area you see here, and that is recorded with the county. We are currently marketing this property as is required by the state through the Surplus Land Act. And that means we have to offer it for below market housing, and we've done that and had a couple interested parties, and we're working through that process now. Those processes require us to negotiate in good faith through a particular time period that ends in the beginning of April. We're continuing to work through those negotiations as we speak. Ultimately, we will use this property either for the below market housing, or we also have council direction for private sale if those negotiations do not pan out. And this is what the Byrne Avenue property looks like. You can see that it's an older property that we've had for a while, right up against the Blackberry Farm golf course. The second property is City Hall, and that's sort of to the right of this chart here. I've separated it out because it is one large parcel. We're talking about the City Hall portion of the parcel. We did have direction from the council in October of last year to look at partnership opportunities, and we're moving that those discussions and those explorations of opportunities forward in alignment with resolving our city fiscal challenges. In other words, moving forward with a big capital project at this location is difficult right now. So we're looking for creative ideas to meet our needs here. And with that, we also have the Torrey Avenue, what we're calling the annex property, which is down on the corner of Pacifica and Torrey Avenue. We purchased this property with the idea of providing a public-facing facility while work was going on at City Hall. And we have design that we've been working on that property that we've put on hold pending movement on the City Hall project and final direction with that one to make sure that we don't spend money there that we don't need to invest. Into a couple other interesting properties that we own. Stevens Creek Boulevard, what we call the Blesh property. This is a property in the flood zone on Stevens Creek, right next to Stevens Creek, that has not been used since we procured it with Park in lieu funds. The intent of the property was to use the land for support of the open space areas in that location. And this ties in nicely with the next property, which is a Stockelmeyer property, highlighted here. This is a property that we acquired from the Stockelmeyer family some time ago. It also is in the flood zone and is an old farmhouse and farm location. We are considering, and this is hopefully where most of our discussion will occur tonight, options for this property. We think it combines nicely with the Blesh property as they are essentially adjacent. And there may be opportunities to move forward in this area with a property that meets some of the community interests to tie to the heritage, the farming heritage of the valley. We do need to identify what the costs for doing something at this property, such as a restoration, might be. So there would be some initial work from the city's perspective to get there. And then we're throwing out the idea of a community-based process to look for a long-term use of that property that might include a nonprofit operations and operating it and maintaining it over time. Also doing some fundraising up front to support the work so that the city doesn't need to make a huge expenditure there. As noted, there are other properties on the list. If you have questions on them, we'd be happy to address them. And our recommendation tonight is to review these properties and then provide direction on the Stockelmeyer and Blesh area on future steps for those. And that concludes my report, and I'm here to support the discussion.
Thank you very much, Assistant City Manager Morley. We will now have council members question staff. 5 minutes per council member, please. I see a light. Council Member Wei, you went first.
Thank you, Mayor Mohan. So my question is for the Stockmeyer house. Is there any possibility for grant for restoring of the historical property out there?
So the property is in. The property has a connection historically to Cupertino because of its nature as a farmstead, but it is not a historic property. It has no historic designation to it. I believe council at one point in the past, or a council, made a determination not to identify residential units as historic. So there's some precedent that's been set by council there. All that said, there may be opportunities for fundraising, community fundraising to make something happen there. And that's sort of the approach that we would envision for this property.
Thank you. So essentially, it is not a historical property, but to Cupertino, it has historical meanings to it.
Absolutely.
Okay, so my next question is, maybe I missed it. Maybe you can answer it because the scope of it. How much are we looking for to restore it? Minimally or, elaborately?
Yeah. So we don't have a number, and that would be the first bit of work we would do. We'd want to identify a number that we could start to fundraise towards. We're thinking it's a fairly large amount of money to get there, but we have to do some work. Some of the work includes identifying how much the property is in the flood zone. Do we need to do work to get the structure itself up out of the flood area? Are there hazardous materials in the site that we need to address, and that would be something we'd have to take measurements of. Those kinds of things that are unknowns that really preclude us from putting a dollar value on it now. So the first step would be to spend a few dollars to identify and put a scope together, and then to bring that community group together. There are dollars associated with our city-owned properties in the work program, so we have the funding already appropriated for that action.
Thank you, Assistant Manager Moley. I'm reserving my 3 minutes.
Councilmember Chow.
Hi, thank you for bringing this item forward and the list. I think there is a map in the supplemental report. Sorry, I haven't had time to look at that today. And so I remember a few years ago there was a proposal to put a nonprofit center at the Stockholm Mile site, and then a few years back, maybe like 2014, there was that council had some consultant designs. There was already a certain design done for that area. So do we have data on those?
Yeah, so like many of our projects, we come to the council first to ask for direction to move forward with before we actually start down that path. So we haven't done any work to research what we have in terms of designs from the past, if those would work. We haven't looked at whether the property can be raised out of the flood zone or not. None of that work has been done. We want to make sure that this is something that council would support before we started down those paths.
Okay, I just hope that we don't repeat the same thing, because I kind of remember there was a feasibility study done, a few options proposed. From the top of my head, I remember the cost was like $47 million to $70 million. That was when I first got involved with City Council, and this was one of the things that was on the agenda. So it would be good to get those information, so we don't redo the same thing. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any other lights. Oh, I do. Vice Mayor Fruin.
Given the historical connection of the Stockholm-Meyer property and to some extent some interest that the Historical Society has had in the past with the Blesch House, what outreach has thus far occurred with the Historical Society on one or either?
Yeah, we did chat with the Historic Society to see if there was any level of interest there. They have expressed interest. I think the devil is in the details, so we'll want to work through that with them. We see that as a great connection to connecting the Historic Society to the history of the area may be a great opportunity for programming that space. It may also free up some space at Quinlan for other uses. So there's great synergies that we could take advantage of there.
Okay, I appreciate that. I'll mention that I know that one thing that is an abiding concern for them is a Kelly truck that they have difficulty storing and showing, and so to the extent that it can be accommodated at one or either site, that would be fantastic. Thank you.
Councilmember Moore.
So I was wondering if anyone knows why the Stockelmeyer House used to be, this is from like 2005 general plan, the Stockelmeyer House used to be listed as a historic site. And it's in, number 9, and here's number 9. So it used to be listed, and then the general plan for, it was approved 2015, then changed it to a commemorative site, and I could not find anything that explained what the difference was between a commemorative site and an historic site. So I was concerned about that. Also, since it keeps being mentioned that it's in a floodplain, I was wondering if this structure has ever actually flooded. It's been there since, I believe, 1904. And in the written communications, I turned in the 1999 Phase 1 environmental site assessment from Camp Dresser and McKee, and it has some interesting photographs as well. But they've already done some preliminary work on there for with regards to any potential contamination. Thank you.
And through the mayor, we don't have answers to those questions tonight. Certainly that would be research that we would do as we're working through due diligence if a project were to go forward.
Okay, so I had a question about the Stockelmeyer site as well. What is it that you think would be a good future use of the site?
Yeah, so
besides the historical nature of it.
At the risk of jumping in front of a community process that we would want to work through, there could be some potential. So if you were to envision rehabbing the site and making the building occupiable, the Historical Society could potentially program the space, have it open for public viewing of rotating historic presentations, much like they do now at Quinlan. You could bring in field trips to experience the history of Cupertino. We already do field trips to the creek now, so that could be a connection there. A whole gamut of things that where this could become involved in in programming and actual productive use versus sort of deteriorating as it is currently.
Okay, when this first came up, at least to my knowledge, about a year ago, I thought there was some interest with some nonprofits to actually work on this. Are those still there, or have we ruled that out for now?
So we have definitely not ruled out anything. I think there had been some discussion previously with different organizations on operating or renovating the building. I think this might be a little bit of a new direction in terms of being more community focused and with some city oversight. But again, we haven't worked out the details of it. We wanted to float the idea of, if there's an operational building in the future and we could work through a community plan to make that happen, is that something the council would be interested in?
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Wade?
Thank you, Mayor Mohan. I think I reserved my 3 minutes. So my other question is about the Blesh property. Has it being proposed what to do with it, or is it a plan that goes with the property, two property together, or what's the plan?
So if we're doing something active with the Stockelmeyer property, the Blesh property is, I think, well positioned to support either the Stockelmeyer property and or the open space that's the creek and the trail. So I think it's a great either landing spot for that kind of work. It could be programmed as well with tractors or something like that that points to the heritage of Cupertino. It could support the golf course, which is right there. So there's lots of potential uses for that space. We do not see a future for the building.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, let's go to public comments then on the review of the city-owned properties. Are there any cards, Madam City Clerk?
Yes, Mayor. I have 5 requests to speak in Community Hall, and there are 2 hands raised virtually. So we have Janet Van Zoren, followed by Angela Johnson, followed by Trudy Grable.
Okay, each of you gets 3 minutes.
Welcome, Janet.
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. Excuse me. I have a couple of helpers. Cupertino will soon have 2 memory care facilities, one at the Forum and another at the Oaks, or where the Oaks used to be. A third is just opening across from Yamagami's. However, assisted living complexes, memory care homes, and nursing homes are not designed to include meeting the needs of those who have intellectual and developmental disabilities and dementia. Furthermore, in living in any facility that is even remotely similar to an institution, this disqualifies these individuals from receiving the services they need that would otherwise be covered by Medicare, Medi-Cal, and the Department of Developmental Services. However, Cupertino has an opportunity to create on its Byrne Avenue surplus land parcel a 2,500 square foot memory care home designed to house 4 adults who have both pre-existing cognitive deficits and dementia. Most would likely have Down syndrome and dementia, as these individuals with this disorder have a 95% chance of developing Alzheimer's disease, compared to the general populace that has a 12% chance. This home would not only provide safe and pleasant housing, but also qualify person-centered care to ensure that its residents could age well. Currently, their housing situation is dire because society has failed to recognize the severity of their needs. Not long ago, people with Down syndrome died before reaching adulthood, and no provisions were made to meet their senior aging needs. Now, however, due to medical advances coupled with life in the community as opposed to in an institution, their longevity has greatly increased, but there is no place to live for those who can no longer be cared for in their family home. They require specialized dementia care services because of the interplay of their pre-existing cognitive deficits, their accelerated biological aging process, and the unique nature of the Alzheimer's-like dementia that they develop. They need our help in securing a place to live in a memory care home designed to meet their person-centered needs. We can now secure enough state funding to tear down and rebuild a home specific to these housing needs. We do not need any BRMAR funds from the city, but we do need land on which to build. Please consider specifically allowing the city staff to negotiate a long-term lease for the Byrne Avenue site with the nonprofit that proposes to build this very special home. It will also become only...
Thank you, Janet. That is your time.
Thank you very much.
Next, we have Angela Johnson, followed by Trudy Grable, followed by Eric McKinley. Welcome, Angela.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. To continue, as Jude was saying, please...
Can you speak louder or come closer to the microphone, please?
Thank you. Just to continue and finish here, please consider specifically allowing the city staff to negotiate a long-term lease to the Byrne Avenue site with the nonprofit that proposes to build this very special home. It will also become only the second home of its kind in all of Northern California, a model for replication in other areas of the state. A nonprofit organization wants to build affordable housing for people with Alzheimer's and intellectual and/or developmental disabilities. These people are ineligible for housing in assisted living complexes, memory care homes, or institutions. The organization needs a long-term lease of the Byrne Avenue property in Cupertino to build a 4-bedroom home for them. Cupertino has a great reputation for serving the needs of its residents with IDD. The state will provide for their care in accordance with the Lanterman Act, and the San Andreas Regional Center has also committed to ensuring that this occurs. Please consider letting the city staff negotiate a long-term lease with the nonprofit to build this very special home. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Angela. Next, we have Trudy Grable, followed by Eric McKinley, followed by Brooke Ezett. Welcome, Trudy.
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you for hearing us about this very important issue. I worked at Parents Helping Parents for 30 years, and I talked to tens of thousands of family members who were worried about what will happen to their son or daughter in the future. Well, we've all aged over that 30 years, and I continue to work with families, and just this very week had a contact from an adult sibling who has a brother with Down syndrome and has dementia, and there is no place for him. And what are they to do? His mother is 90 years old. I mean, imagine, we all have brain freezes, right? Where we go, oh, do I have dementia coming on, right? Especially as we get more silver. But imagine if you were the parent of a child that you knew had this enormous risk of developing dementia and knew there was no place for them to go when you died. We take care of our kids while they're under our care, while we still have a breath. But when we're gone, we need to know that our communities will still be there for them. That when we're not here, they're going to have a roof over their head. They're not going to end up in a skilled nursing facility where they're drugged because people can't manage them. Our kids deserve more than what we have to offer now. And this provides an opportunity to meet the requirements of Center for Medicare and Medicaid that people live in their communities. And we know in Santa Clara County it's prohibitive. And that without the partnerships of cities and housing authorities and agencies that are willing to come in and build the property, our kids will not end up well. I'm a parent of a daughter who is almost 40 years old who has an intellectual disability and autism. And she has, as you saw through the slides, that she has a higher risk of developing some type of dementia. I want to know that when I go, there's places that are going to be available, that are going to be caring, that are person-centered, that really honor what matters to that person in their life and how to help them have better lives according to them. So I thank you and hope and pray that you will consider this option for the burned property that would be available to folks like my daughter and many of the rest of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Eric McKinley, followed by Brooke Ezett. Welcome, Eric.
Hi, I'm Eric McKinley. I've lived on Byrne Avenue with my wife and family for the last 40 years. We're about around a block away from the house that's being discussed here. I just learned about the possibility of this project yesterday. So I don't have all the details about all the options. What I do have is experience with our daughter who is on the autism spectrum, and we were able to find an apartment for developmentally disabled people in San Jose for her to move to. And I know what a difference that made both in our lives and in her life. So I just want to encourage the council to really actively explore the idea of using the property for that purpose. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Next we have Brooke Ezett. Welcome, Brooke.
Thank you for letting me speak. First of all, I hope that the city is not going to go ahead willy-nilly and sell off public property, because effectively that's our property and we need to have a voice in the matter. Secondly, Stockelmeyer House. When I was going through the city records, I found a staff report from 2009 that detailed the history of the property, and I'd like it to be entered into public record, and I'll give it to the gentleman sitting to the right of me here if he wants to peruse it first. But basically it says how big the property is, that the city spent $35,000 renovating it because of the roof, and then went on to say that the creek was going to be repositioned to provide more shade for the steelhead salmon. It goes on to say that in 2004, the Cupertino Historical Society requested a long-term lease, and then went on to say that they probably would need millions of dollars to renovate it. And it goes on to say at the end that the whole purpose was to build a community hub where existing resources can be nurtured and cultivated while celebrating our historical legacy. They wanted to create community partnerships to build and sustain open living space, and they had a list of potential partners in this crime that might be of interest. There was also a report put together by the Friends of Stevens Creek Trail around that time that gave some more information. But, you know, if we had invested the $48 million in a 5.2% money market account, we could probably pay for these and for the Shakespeare in the park. Thank you.
Thank you, Brooke. Next, we will move to our requesters that are speaking virtually. There are so, Rhoda, I'm going to put you on the spot. Did you submit that within the 9-minute cutoff?
I did when the first person was speaking. I waited. Yeah. Sorry.
Okay, yes, Mayor, that acceptable? Okay, so we have Rhoda Frey.
Thank you. So please refer to my public comment in the study session. I had mentioned that how the Historical Society had allowed Cupertino's oldest home to fall into disrepair, and in fact it was in violation of the city's general plan. So moving on to the Stockelmeyer site, we purchased it in 1999, and it was in excellent condition with the exception of the septic system. And again, my comments in the study session, you'll find a thorough condition report of that property. And I would recommend that further studies should consult this report and be funded privately. Please, let's at least repair the exterior of this home that belonged to our city's first historians. So we've got the Hammond Snyder that belonged to our city's first physician, and that's this county's first physician. He was the Sari Cody of his day, and the home was rented to Lehigh, so Lehigh would be allowed to wouldn't have to put in modern pollution equipment, and it's kind of ironic that that house fell into disrepair. Anyway, regarding burn, in general, I'm very supportive of having housing in our community for people with various disabilities. However, the burn site specifically is extraordinarily challenging. Frankly, I'd rather have that type of home across the street from me rather than there. I don't see, I do live nearby, I don't see the property from there, so I just want to tell you I'm speaking from the heart, where when you look at the property, it looks, oh wow, look, it's really big and it's wonderful, but it's really, really steep, and it's a really challenging build, and I think that organizations would get a better bang for their buck for another similar size property. And last of all, let's please repair City Hall. We had a plan in place. We bought another building where we can put our emergency services. We know that at some point we will be needing our emergency services. So let's get them into a building that's rated for that. And also let's get our employees safe in our City Hall. We know that we are in financial straits, and it simply does not make sense to build a new City Hall. And so let's please revive the old plan. And I'm also vehemently against building a new city hall with Sand Hill. Thank you.
Thank you, Rhoda. Next, we will move to our 3 people that are requesting to speak virtually: Connie, Cunningham, San R, and Lisa. Welcome, Connie.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, good evening, Mayor and council members. I am Connie Cunningham, Chair of the Housing Commission, speaking for myself only. And I want to thank Assistant Manager Matt Marley for the excellent report on this item. Firstly, I would just say about Stocklemire site, I support only uses that are consistent with the museum or nature, since it is so near the creek and it's in a flood zone. As you might expect, it impacts bird safe and design. Secondly, I'm speaking tonight specifically in support of Janet Van Zoren on behalf of the proposal of a 4-apartment memory care home for IDD individuals at 10301 Byrne Avenue with a long-term lease of the land as they have proposed. And they will be building the home itself. And I highlight the statement in the staff report that says that should staff reach agreement with one of the parties interested in the property for below market rate housing, the agreement will return to the council for consideration. That would be wonderful. Then it says, should no agreement be reached in this phase, staff will propose selling the property with the use of a real estate agent at market value. I heard one speaker say they should look for another space. Spaces don't just show up like that, where you have a big enough piece of property to put it in that is meets the criteria of what they're looking for. Just like this one. Somebody's thinking they might want to just sell it. Interestingly enough, financial advisors usually advise to hold on to property. It's the most valuable thing you have and increases in value more than anything else you will ever have. That's true of city land as well. I would say that it is irresponsible to sell the city land and lose control over what the city wants to achieve for its residents. Discussed in the earlier CIP session tonight, pages 3 and 4, the CIP plan prioritizes health and safety, community priority projects that have secured external funding, and that this year specific emphasis has been placed on projects that utilize non-general fund sources. This project utilizes funds from other sources. It seems to be a really nice fit. The property itself was purchased in 2017. That's a long time ago. The applicant plans to provide the funds to build the 4 apartments that they propose and also pay a lease for the apartment. This is a project that furthers the health of people suffering dementia. I look forward to seeing the Bay Area Housing Corporation be awarded the use of this property, and I urge you to consider very strongly what the city is trying to do for its residents. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Connie. Next we have San R, followed by, looks like just San R. Welcome, San.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor Sheila and City Council members. I would urge you to please perform outreach to the residents by the Byrne Avenue property and to the school families that is located right by the Byrne Avenue property, which is Monta Vista High. That area has a fair amount of residential property, and it would be good for those residents to be aware of what is happening and to fully participate in this process. They should have a voice and a say in this process. And I have seen no outreach by staff that has at least come back to council or any other form of communication that the public can access to know that outreach has occurred. So I urge you to please defer any action on this until outreach has occurred, not only to all of the residents in the area, but also to the school families that have commutes into that area, both through Byrne Avenue, because Byrne Avenue is a connector from Stevens Creek, and to families that are coming in through McLellan. I have some exposure to the Cupertino Health and Wellness Center, and frequently we see emergency vehicles such as ambulances and fire department vehicles coming by the facility. As you know, these are narrow roads, especially during school hours, and McClellan tends to be clog jammed all the way through. And so accessibility to the property is assured, healthcare need to be provided to both Byrne and McClellan needs to be studied, as well as the impact on ability to park there and not cause a blockage of those narrow roadways that are critical feeders into the school. And so this is not a matter only of the humane issue, which I fully support, and I think we should consider other locations for it. But I think you need to conduct a traffic impact study should you need emergency vehicle access to provide care, given the narrow roadways, and I think you need to do full outreach with the community. Coming to the other properties that are part of the staff report, I would urge you to take no action on the City Hall and the City Annex, given that this has been a fairly contentious issue, and given that we are only 6 months away from an election, we could have a different council in 6 to 7 months from now, and I urge you to please not act in haste on this issue. The fastest path to a safer property for staff is to do an in-place retrofit. There should be no doubt about that. There is no chance that any public-private partnership will do a ground-up construction and provide a faster facility for a faster path for safety for city staff. And so there are deeply divided opinions on this. If we truly care about staff safety, let us prioritize the in-place retrofit. And at the very least, let's take no action on this today. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Mayor, that was our final commenter.
Okay, that ends the public comments portion of today's agenda. Thank you to everyone who weighed in on their positions. And as we always do, we make sure that everyone's opinions and feedback is considered. Let's bring it back to the council, and we will get so let me just reiterate what is expected of council on this topic. We have to review the city-owned properties, and we provide directions to proceed with exploring rehabilitation and future use of the Stockholmeyer site. So all we are required to do is go with or give staff direction to proceed with further exploring the different options for the city-owned properties, especially the Stockholmeyer, the Byrne, the Blesch, and the other two that were listed in Assistant City Manager's report. So having said that, can we get a motion to review? Do we need a motion? We do need a motion, right? Okay. So let's get a motion to go with the staff recommendation to review the city-owned properties and pursue future options for some of our sites, especially the Stockholmeyer site. Is there a motion? Okay, we'll go with the lights first. Councilmember Way.
So moved. Through the city's work plan, $90,000 to budget $90,000 for the city property use. The funds will be utilized to a preliminary analysis of the Stockholmeyer and the Blesch properties.
Okay, so we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, there's a motion. There's a second, and before we vote, let's go with Councilmember Chow for your comments. You will get 3 minutes. No, sorry, 5 minutes.
Okay. Can I ask more question about the proposal for Byrne Avenue? Is that allowed?
I think it depends on the question.
Oh. And I want to clarify on the proposal. So what's proposed is a single lease on the city land. The city doesn't need to contribute any money. They would bring in extra funding from other agencies, and they will be replacing this single-family home by a new single-family home of 4-bedroom, as I understand. Is that correct?
So, as I understand that this matter was discussed in a closed session, I don't know if we're in a liberty of talking about this in detail until that the city attorney has provided a report out from the closed session.
So, City Attorney, can I get more clarity? Since there were people concerned about traffic impact, so I want to clarify, would there be traffic impact on the neighborhood?
So I mean, it is public information that the city is going through the Surplus Land Act process with this property, that it did receive 2 responses from affordable housing organizations for that request. I think, I'll defer to Assistant City Manager Morley on the details of that, but I would say any details regarding the any potential financing for those requests, it would be premature to really speculate on what that structure would look like.
And if I may, through the mayor, add that we have specific direction from the council per the Surplus Land Act, and we are pursuing those discussions as directed by council.
Oh, so there was public comments on one of the proposals. There were people who are concerned about traffic impact. So can we clarify that there will be no rezoning on the property, that it will remain a single-family home?
I mean, I believe it's a little premature to make that comment or even commitment at this point.
Right. I mean, I think we could say that council would have to approve any rezoning of the property, but
But they are not requesting a rezoning.
I don't believe there's any direction from council in terms of what to do with the property, which is why it's a little premature to make any commitment related to zoning of the property. So the city is going through the surplus land exercise only to see if we would offer that property to any affordable
my
housing.
My question is, there are speakers here, so can I ask them to clarify their proposal? Is that allowed?
Yes, if you want to use your time to ask those questions, you have
good.
2 minutes.
So, Janet, can you please clarify? So your proposal won't rezone the property to any higher density. It will remain a single-family home.
Yes, just a 4-bedroom residential home that's specifically designed with modifications to accommodate people with dementia.
And in terms of traffic impact, likely there won't be more than a normal single-family home.
Well, there might be a little bit more because there's 24/7 staff there, but there'll be parking on the property. It shouldn't interfere with the roadway at all. And, somebody made that comment about ambulances and whatnot.
Yeah, with that.
That can happen in a single-family home, too.
So you won't be concerned with access for emergency vehicles in case?
Oh, I'm sure that the nonprofit that's going to build this will make sure that they have what access they need for that. Yeah.
And you are not requesting the city for any additional funding except the use of the lease of the land for how many years?
Hopefully 99, just because the investment of tearing down and building the home, which we have found the funds for, that's a big investment. And if we only had a lease that was for a few years, it wouldn't make sense to build something like that on the property.
Thank you for allowing me to clarify this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Moore.
Okay, thank you, and thank you, Matt, for the report. And I do support having the ELI housing, especially for people with developmental disabilities. We do need to find a location. To Stocklemire, I tried to get Stockholmeyer on the agenda a long time ago, it seems. So 2017, I was really excited about it. There's the turtle ponds out front and the river rocks. It's a very nice location next to the creek. In the Blesch House, if we go along with what you're suggesting there, you could have a beautiful park place for people to sit next to the creek. If there are a lot of visitors, you could work with the parking area there to make sure that people can enjoy that space and have access to it. My statements about the safety concerns for City Hall, I still have those concerns. I served on the City Hall subcommittee. My preference still is, and I would just want to make sure it's on the record, to do the seismic retrofit now. But going back to Stockholmeyer, I am really excited that it could possibly become some museum space for the Cupertino Historical Society, and I have heard over the years that they have wanted that as well, and it would be wonderful if we can get something moving and we have people that are interested in supporting this. I think it would be a great win for the community. And to the environmental issues, they have a historic orange orchard there. They did have some other fruit trees, different kinds, and I have mentioned that I don't know if this is the right location to tie that in, but with the Garden of with the Valley of Heart's Delight, we have a legacy of contamination in the area that could be spoken about, where they used lead and arsenic as pesticides, and then moved on to DDT, unfortunately, and then we got into the chip making, which then we had contamination from that in the etching solutions that they used, and then we started using dry cleaning, and we had dry cleaning fluid also causes contamination. There's I could see a whole lesson that the students could learn about this. The subsidence, Santa Clara Valley was the first area in the country where they noticed that the groundwater pumping was causing the subsidence of the soil. The land was sinking up to 14 feet in San Jose. So there's a ton of information. I could see kids coming out here, going to Alviso and seeing what happened over there. I think it could be really educational. Thank you.
Thank you. Assistant City Manager Morley, since the direction is to give you some feedback on the future use of these city-owned properties, I'm assuming that you've heard the council members and you've heard members of the public, and my assumption is that you will take all the feedback that you've received so far and include it in your decision or the next steps towards dealing with these properties.
The discussion has been clear, and the motion that's on the table is clear. So yes, I think the information is great. Thank you.
Okay, so let's go back to the motion, which is to accept the staff report and provide direction to explore rehabilitation and future use of the Stockholmeyer site, which will include all our comments that we've made so far. We have a motion, we have a second, so let's vote by lights. Oh, sorry, Vice Mayor Fruin.
Thank you. Just as one last thing, I wanted to underscore the ongoing conversation with the Historical Society. I hope you'll continue that conversation. I know that they'll be very excited to do something good with this property.
Thank you.
Okay, let's vote by lights, please.
The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much. Should we take a 5-minute break? All right. It's 8:45. We'll be back at 8:50. Thank you. We're back from our recess, and we will go back to items that were pulled from the consent calendar, which is, and the first one is item number 4, which is revisions to the Cupertino City Council Procedures Manual. Do we have a staff report, City Manager? City Attorney, sorry.
Mayor, we do not have a staff report, however, as this was on consent. However, I would like to point out that there was a desk item that was submitted today and that includes answers to council member questions. It also includes one revision to the procedures manual to section 8.3, and that was based on direction from council at the March 5th meeting. And then there's a sentence that was added there that was inadvertently admitted to the version that was circulated with your packet. So I just wanted to make sure everybody's aware of those changes. But we are, staff is available to answer council member questions, but there is no presentation.
Since Councilmember Chow, you requested that this item be pulled, can you go through the reasons for you wanting to do that?
Yeah. Since we had only a study session this last time, and I would like to record my objection to the revision that's proposed here, especially the item that require a majority of the council to decide whether to put an item that's on the agenda that day. As we have seen in the past, the discussion of whether to put an item sometimes takes long, and then it's very hard to not be substantive and in order to make an informed decision. Since it's already on the council agenda, it's much easier, actually saves time to just pull it. And a lot of time, it doesn't take much time for a pulled item. So I think it's complicating the procedure to require a majority vote to pull it. So I hope the council reconsider that. I also am concerned of potential Brown Act violation when the discussion of whether to pull an item has to be substantive in order to justify whether to pull or not. Yeah, that was the main objection. So
before
I had another point. I'll reserve my time for later.
Okay, Councilmember Wei.
So to follow up with Councilmember Chow's question, since this is, when we pull an item, it's already on the agenda, is that a discussion of it is a violation of Brown Act or not?
If an item's on the agenda, then council can discuss it without violating the Brown Act.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to reserve my 4 minutes and 45 minutes.
Okay, Councilmember Moore.
Okay, so then I would like to have a clarification, because that sentence was, if an item's on the agenda, council can discuss it. But we have the informational items, and this indicates that council cannot discuss it. So sorry for the paper rustling. Information items are intended to provide background information and routine reports to council members and the public without discussion by council. Members of the public wishing to comment on informational items should do so during oral communications, which we all saw that happen tonight. So this informational items specification is not. And that's a question, actually. I don't think it's within our procedures manual anywhere. And then seeing that, is there any reason why we can't pull informational items? Is there any mechanism that we could have to do that? And then I do want to kind of register my protest with regards to the TBD process, because once we've put an item, once we've agendized an item, then I'll give an example. I wanted to get some information last March, and I was not provided that information, and the new procedures state that I could, could not make a public records request for that information. I would have been in violation of the rules. So then I agendized an item, it got on the TBD list, but we didn't see it again on the TBD list until the fall, and then when the item finally came to council, it showed up about 1 or 2 agendas ago. So nearly a year passed from my request for information, which was of a financial nature, and getting to actually have that information, and it was not actually what I wanted at the end of the story. And so I ended up just basically giving up. It took a year. And whereas a member of the public could have made a public records request and gotten that within, 10 days, could have been a month at the most. So I feel that as a council member, I have less rights than the public with regards to having access to public information, which I protest that. So I have an issue with the TBD and with the public records prohibition for council members. And the informational item question, I would like to hear an answer for that. Thank you.
Let me ask a quick question of City Manager Wu. How often does the TBD list, my understanding was that once every quarter the TBD list comes before the council?
That is correct.
Okay. So I don't think we could have gone a year without seeing a TBD item.
Yes, we did. And because I wasn't getting responded to, I needed to ask again. And then finally I asked for a second to put it on the agenda. And then that's why it took this long. Okay, so yes, so next time, I guess the process is, if you want to know some information about your city's finances, you need to put it on the agenda, then wait for that quarter for it to show up on a TBD, and the other council members can then just vote it down and say, we don't want to have that information, when we don't want you to have that information either. And I don't think that that's appropriate.
Or you could just ask the city manager, send an email and have your questions answered.
Well, that's actually what precipitated this, what I'm describing. I asked, I was not provided that information. I was given a reason, busy, can't provide it. And so that went on. And then I ended up going to the let's agendize it method. And so that I did get a second to put it on the agenda. And then we got to the TBD items, finally got into a TBD list, and then we finally got an answer back. And like I said, it wasn't the information I was looking for. I just want you to know how that's. And I kind of feel like members of the public should just start using the name Kitty Moore when they're doing their public records requests, and take this to its logical conclusion and see how, if I end up in trouble for other people using my name, because you don't even have to use your own name when you're filing a request. It's interesting.
I can try to respond to your question regarding the information calendar. So I mean, items on the information calendar are on the agenda, but they are not agendized for council discussion. And that was intended as a compromise between, I'd say, the more standard practice of providing that information through, an off-agenda memo, which I think would be common in other jurisdictions, and it's sort of our prior practice, which I think did actually run into potential Brown Act issues because there were, routine updates of that sort that tended to generate extended policy discussions that weren't necessarily properly agendized. And so, it was trying to compromise between, those two poles. That said, there are a number of different practices council could adopt to address that issue.
Okay. Do you want to continue? Shall I come back to you, Council Member?
Sure.
Moore. Let's go with Council Member Wei.
Thank you, Mayor Mohan. I have 4 minutes and 45 seconds. Please put it on the clock. Since we're discussing information items, I want to concur with what City Attorney says. It really is for transparency, but if this transparency troubles some City Council members, maybe we should just get rid of it. That's just a suggestion. The second is the instant or that council member described, that she asked questions and wasn't received. I think the grand jury report said very clearly. I think that's probably one of the incidents that's extensive information that takes a long time, so it's not appropriate for Public Records Act. But I want to say our city managers and our staff are very responsive to council questions. And if it's a question that takes 10 hours to respond, I think eventually you'll get it. But it's going to take some time. As we said, we're sitting here, but our staff are doing things. Our CIP managers, our public works people are doing things. They're not just sitting there doing nothing, our staff. So I want to say whatever Councilman Moore described has something to do with what the civil grand jury is describing about. I want to say this is really, our staff is being very responsive. I want to clear that statement that our city manager or staff are not responding to our request, because that doesn't happen to most of us. And also, I just feel that we're talking about City Council Procedures Manual. We don't need censures. We are elected officials, that we follow our rules, and maybe some actions are not against laws, but we're elected officials need to behave in a way that's more responsible than ordinary people. That's just my comment, and I'm reserving my 2 minutes and 55 seconds.
Councilmember Chow.
In case I forget, I'll reserve all my remaining minutes, whatever time is left. This is the new rule that's saying that if I forget to say it at the end, I will forfeit all my remaining time. I think this is really just too much rules. So to count, if this is going to be there, I will just reserve all my time in the beginning, because I tend to forget, and I'm getting old. And I would like the city attorney to please clarify the earlier question on, you mentioned that if we are discussing whether to pull an agenda item, and then Councilmember Wei asked, can we discuss the agenda item? You said yes, but can we discuss the item when we are discussing whether to pull the item?
I think you would discuss the reasons for pulling the item if there was a debate on whether to pull the item.
So I can talk about substantive reasons that I want to pull it?
Well, I guess I would just point out. I would just point out that the proposed revisions to the procedures manual that council chose to adopt at the March 5th meeting would still allow each council member to pull an unlimited number of agenda items up to noon on the day before the council meeting. So that's by far the most efficient way to address the issue, and so it just shifts the timeline back a few hours, and that's, but
sometimes things come up, public reach out to me with last minute things that they want to be pulled, then I would, so you are saying in discussing to pull an item, we can provide substantive comments. And then how about the public? Can the public comment on whether an item should be pulled or not?
There's no place within the meeting for the public to comment on whether an item should be pulled or not. I think that the example that you suggest, if there were a lot of last-minute public comments, I think the reason that you would give for pulling the item is we received a lot of last-minute public comments. So I think that this agenda item should be pulled, and under the proposed procedures, if you could convince two of your colleagues, that could be pulled even after the meeting started. So that's just, there are different ways to handle this, and that's just that was council's direction at the March 5th meeting.
Often when it's last minute, I don't fully understand the public's reason for pulling, and then this is when I need a Q&A time, because they have questions for staff, and then but without having the public able to speak their reasons, without me being able to ask questions, it feels like this is introducing something that's really not saving us time. We will be spending a lot of time just talking about whether we should pull it. Why don't we just then pull it, discuss, and then if that's clarified, then fine.
Yeah, as I said, there are a number of ways to handle this, but this is based on the direction of council from the March 5th meeting.
Okay.
So my understanding is you can pull an item, and then we don't have to go into a debate about whether to pull an item or not pull an item. When in doubt, just pull the item, and we'll discuss it at the appropriate time. So we're not going to have a long discussion about should we pull, should we not pull, because if there's any doubt at all, we should just pull it.
The new rule, I'm not allowed to pull, though.
Oh, wait,
Through
we're not
the mayor. You are still allowed to pull.
Exactly.
You just have to convince 2 of your colleagues to vote in favor of it. You can't do it unilaterally. You can do it unilaterally up until noon the day of.
So we can go into a long discussion on why I need to pull the item. That means
After 12 o'clock on the day of the meeting.
Okay.
All right, Councilmember Moore?
Okay, thank you. So I've kind of got my list of things that I'm not happy with here with this list. So I've talked about the TBD items, public records requests. No, and I want to mention this censure and admonition. Admonishment, that we don't have a process there. So last week I attended the censure of Santa Clara Valley Water Board member, of a board member, in person, and it took almost 5 hours. And they spent the start of the meeting, they went through the process that they had in place and how they were going to conduct it. And then they went through their process that they had, if they were going to have any changes to it, because they hadn't done this before. They had a public kind of vetting of it before they started. And I think that probably should have happened as an observer. That should have probably happened, some time earlier, some months before, when there wasn't a heated topic, where they could have gone through how would this actually play out. And I think I suggest to anyone, it was the 10 o'clock meeting last Thursday, to watch it. I think that because I had and another council member had all our committee assignments removed, which is the harshest form of punishment out of that. That's basically a censure punishment. And that actually, it needed to have a process for it, and it didn't. And I'm sad and kind of embarrassed for us that we have not gone to the trouble of forming a process to prevent that kind of haphazard event to happen again.
Mayor,
yes.
Point of order. I think I think we've at this point strayed beyond council member questions. If there are no further questions, I'd recommend taking public comment.
Okay. Let's do that. Public comments for item number 4, which is the council procedures manual. And Madam City Clerk?
Yes, Mayor, I see 2 people rushing to submit blue speaker cards in Community Hall, and we also have 3 hands raised virtually, so we'll go ahead. If you don't mind, I will call on the virtual speakers first.
Yes,
so
why don't we do that?
Okay, so we have Lisa, followed by Sanar, followed by Peggy Griffin. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. I am going to be clear that I was not had to leave the room for a work while this discussion started, but I've heard some of it. And just in general, I believe that this wide-ranging change to procedures that happened over the last year plus many of them are not helpful. Specifically, not specifically, but definitely not helpful for people who like transparency and like open conversation and not playing games, et cetera, et cetera. So and then as discussion was happening that I did hear, it made me ask, and I asked myself, and I don't think you can answer me, but people always refer to the civil grand jury report. I don't think there's a single community member resident that was interviewed for that report. And if I'm wrong, I'd like to know it. If I'm not wrong, it seems wrong. because once again, the council's elected to serve their residents. The residents are the top of the org chart. And staff is below council. So, you may think I'm talking in circles, and maybe I am, but not in my own head, because what I see is a deterioration, and it continues. And then, you know, late last year, oh, you might, this is just one instance, maybe we'll let you get your assignments back if you participate in a governance workshop. That governance workshop, it really didn't have any, the one that was required didn't have much meat on the problem with having assignments taken away, and then no assignments really came back. And maybe the people that lost their assignments don't really care anymore because they feel like it is what it is, but it just didn't feel genuine in its attempt to correct something that the public's not happy about, or a lot of the public. And remember the voting situation and how much the public is supposed to matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Next we have San R, followed by Peggy Griffin, followed by Jennifer Sharon. Welcome, San.
Good evening, Mayor Sheila and council members. It is apparent from all of these changes that these are not aligned with providing more stakeholder transparency and making it easier for your stakeholders to provide you input. We've seen the increasing amount of items on the agenda that have gone under informational as well as consent calendar items. And by making it harder to pull items from the consent calendar, they only go a step further in reducing the participation of your residents in the process of providing you input and in the process of deliberations. And I see council members repeatedly refer to, you can talk to staff, they're accessible, they can be reached anytime. I think you forget the important part that when you're on dais and have the discussion, it is on public record. And when you're on dais and taking public input, the public has a chance to participate in the process. Talking offline can certainly always be an option, but it denies the public the chance to watch their elected representatives taking positions on issues so that residents may vote based on how their council members have taken positions. On this issue alone, it is clear as to which council members on the dais have taken positions in favor of stakeholder engagement and transparency and increasing the right of residents to participate in the process versus which council members have chosen not to do that. Our city is one of the highest median income cities in California. We are not fools. We can see how this process is working. My question to our council members is, are these changes coming from you on direction to staff, or are these changes coming from staff who I can understand wish to see more efficient meetings, and you are approving these changes without pushing back? I'm all for efficient meetings. I completely agree that we need efficient meetings. However, when you make this process harder, it breaks down trust, and trust is essential for efficient meetings. When you take trust away, meetings will become inefficient because people micromanage each other. And I don't believe that should be the goal long-term for us. I think we build trust when we provide greater transparency. We build trust when we provide greater access, and trust will create efficiency. So I urge you to please consider thinking about where this process goes in the direction you're going. As one of the council members mentioned, you can always pull every item. And so did that provide you efficiency? Probably not. However, I would urge all parties here to just assume good intent on the part of everyone, not try to take away the public engagement in this process, and not make it harder for the process to work as it should. Thank you.
Thank you, San. Next we have Peggy Griffin, followed by Jennifer Sharon. Welcome, Peggy.
Thank you. Could you show my slide, please, Kirsten?
Yes.
First of all, these two sections, section 8.4.2, has to do with the consent calendar. And Councilmember Chow asked if she could pull something and was told it was too late. But in your procedures, ones that are so complex that none of you remember the rules, it says here, highlighted in yellow, that items may be removed from the consent calendar after 12 noon on the day of the city council meeting only by the majority vote of the council. Councilmember Chow was not offered the opportunity to ask other members of the council if they would consent to that. That should have been the step when she asked to pull it. Second, on 8.6, this is public communication, oral communication. When someone speaks, as did Councilmember Moore, she went back and asked if she could put this on the consent calendar. And she was told that there's another place in the meeting to do that. But here in your manual, it says that they can request that the staff report back at a future meeting or request that the staff place the item on a future agenda. But she was not allowed to do that. So you're violating your own, you've made this so complex that you can't even follow it yourself. And as to section, I think it's 10, where you can censure, you really do need rules. Just to specify levels. I have seen staff violate closed session comments. What if a council member does it? What if a staff, what are the repercussions and how serious is it? You need to decide ahead of time before the heat of the moment so that there are defined outcomes and everybody knows what it is. Please. And in treating each other, you are attacking each other. I've heard, you're pulling up the grand jury. We're beyond this. Let's move on and address this. These procedures are too complex. You guys can't remember them. Thank you.
Thank you, Peggy. And next we have Jennifer Sharon. Welcome, Jennifer.
Good evening, Mayor Mohan and City Council members. I'm speaking tonight only on behalf of myself. Forgive me, but I missed the beginning of the discussion and came in later. But I did want to make a few comments. The changes to procedures over the past year have been wonderful for making sure that everyone, both residents and council members, get a chance to participate and for our meetings to finally be run in an efficient manner. I'm a resident. I really appreciate it. The council is here to do the city's business. The council is here to do the city's business. These new procedures make it so we can finally get that business done. Let's keep going in that manner. I do have a few comments on this particular agenda item based on events that have happened in the last month or so since this was first agendized. I ask that council members consider these small changes to the procedures to remedy the issues. The first is to modify the council reports to limit them to report out when council members are representing the city on a regional board or in a ceremonial capacity. It's important that particular report is not used as a sounding board for items that are not within the purview of the city meaning our city government, or that would risk a Brown Act violation. It's easy to have this little bit of discipline and stick to city business. Our procedures should reflect this. A second issue is that it's important that all of us respect the roles and responsibilities of residents and council members. Residents get to speak 3 minutes, like I'm doing right now, on each topic. Council members get much more, plus the ability to ask questions. They also have the power to make binding decisions that we all have to live with. That power comes with responsibility, and that responsibility is to not overstep and take speaking time as a resident as well. It should be obvious this shouldn't happen, but since it appears it's happening, our procedures should also reflect that it's not acceptable. Thank you for considering my input tonight and all of your work on behalf of Cupertino. Thanks.
Thank you, Jennifer. And now we will move to those who have requested to speak in person in Community Hall. We have Jean Bedord, followed by Louise Sadati. Welcome, Jean.
Good evening, Council. Excuse me. Good evening, Council members and staff. My name is Jean Bedord, and I'm a Cupertino resident. And I am baffled by a lot of this discussion. I mean, is a council member an elected official or a member of the public? They're two different responsibilities. Now, 2 weeks ago, a council member got up and went at the back of the dais and submitted a blue card for oral communications as a public, not an elected official, to speak. Now, the agenda specifically states, and I'm quoting now, the portion of the meeting is reserved for persons wishing to address the council on any matter within the jurisdiction of the council and not on the agenda for discussion, including informational items. Well, the informational item in case was the Blackberry Farm golf increases, and that was, specifically excluded. Staff could have easily answered the questions either before or after the meeting. I'd raised the same question myself prior to the meeting and got a quick response. So I felt no need to grandstand and waste everybody's time on the dais. Now, the same thing happened again today. I walked in and there's a council member in public comment. Now, you've got established procedures for elected officials. The guidelines are clearly stated. Council members get ample time on the dais, and if the council member wishes to speak as a member of the public, then resign. And that way you're a member of the public and not an elected official and not bound by all of these procedures that have been put in place. I think things need to be addressed and laid down and clearly separate public from elected official behavior. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. And our final speaker is Louise Sadati. Welcome, Louise.
Good evening. I am going to repeat a line from my that I said earlier, but I think needs to be repeated. For civilization to prosper, we all need to show the ability to follow rules and procedures and protocols. It is amazing that a council member chose to speak as a member of the public at least twice. Council members already have an enormous say. Each council member gives up certain rights by virtue of being elected to office, like, for instance, J.R. Fruin's need to recuse tonight on the Bollinger issue tonight. Thank you for following the procedures. Ongoing complaining from the particular councilman who can't decide if she's a resident or a councilman about the rules, procedures, and expectations about proper decorum is not demonstrating a willingness to follow the rules, procedures, and proper decorum. This does not delete the requirement for all city officials, to follow procedures, rules, and decorum. There were some better Cupertino residents that spoke in support of the councilman that decided not to worry about procedures. And the better Cupertino supermajority also pushed to repeal the specific plan in 2018 without allowing the residents to vote. The repealed specific plan would have given us a new city hall, hundreds of millions of dollars for our schools, and millions of dollars for a new civic center. So it is really interesting that
Mayor.
the same Better Cupertino people are saying that it should be.
Mayor, I think consistency. I think we should attempt to keep the comments to the subject on the agenda.
The council members have the ability to speak much more than the public. Council members also can speak to the city manager and have special meetings. The public only has the ability to speak for 3 minutes during oral communication or the public communication items. We should respect the right of the public to use the public's time. Council members already get to talk. If the council member wants to speak as a member of the public, she can easily remedy her problem. She can always resign and become a member of the public. That's entirely within her power. If a council member continues to demonstrate a lack of understanding, willingness, or ability to follow procedures and decorum, even when she's been cited by the grand jury and she's walked off the dais, et cetera, and so forth, she can resign. So she can speak as a resident, or in November, the voters can choose not to vote for an incumbent council member who continues to demonstrate a repeated pattern of not following set procedures and decorum. Thank you.
Thank you, Louise. Mayor, no further speakers for this item.
Thank you to the public. Thank you to the public who made their comments this evening. Let's bring it back to council. Councilmember Chow, your light is on.
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay.
Do we have time to comment, or do I just make a motion directly?
Why don't you make a motion and then we'll discuss it.
I'd like to make the motion to reject the proposed revision on things they add more confusion and doesn't really improve meeting efficiency. Also, when I pulled the item, I was expecting this item would take 3 minutes, where I would just state my objection to this and then vote no. I did not expect everyone has so much to say about this item on consent. That was what I expected. So
okay, so your motion, you have a motion
to reject the proposed revision.
Okay. Do we have a second?
More second.
Okay.
If I can comment, I actually like a lot of. Can I just comment on the motion?
Okay, you can go for 1 minute.
Okay, 1 minute. I actually like a lot of the procedure that was proposed last year. Some things that weren't clear, so it's great that to put them down, and we have some rule to follow. But it's true that when you have everything that's so detailed, the people lose. It's easy to get lost, and when you put too much rules, it's very hard to follow, actually become cumbersome. Like the speaker pointed out, actually, the council member used to be able to add an item on a future agenda right after public speaking, and then direct the staff to bring back an item. It's great that it's written there, so that we forgot our practice. So thank you for that, and thank you.
Let's get back to the motion. There is a motion to reject the revisions, and Councilmember Moore, you seconded it, I believe.
I did. I would like to make a sentence. Say a sentence before we go to vote.
Okay, go ahead.
I do think that. I think we've probably
1 minute
focused on the metric of time too much, and that we've lost something in the process. We want to have transparency. We want people to feel welcome here, and there are things that are, like in the informational item, which council did not vote to add that element to our agenda. That was not a council vote. It just came in there. It's not part of our procedures, and I think that it is something that isn't helping, that we should have some mechanism to be able to pull those items and have a discussion, so that following the rules here, my options are limited to be able to let the public know something that I'm concerned about. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Fruin.
Yes, I'd like to make a substitute motion, and I will send it to the clerk so that she can put it on the screen.
Just waiting for it to get through our airtight server.
Oh, that's okay. We can all stretch for a couple of seconds.
Okay. I will share my screen. Here we go. Should appear momentarily. There we go.
All right.
Vice Mayor, if you could read it out, please.
Sure. So my motion would be that we approve the staff recommendation adopting resolution number 24-024 as revised per the city attorney's desk item, updating the council procedures manual with the following additional revision and direction. 1, under section 8.3, denominated order of business, amend the language to remove category 14 entitled informational items, renumber the categories accordingly, and direct the city manager instead to transmit to council all items that would ordinarily appear as informational items in the form of memos to council, and to post said memos as they become available on the city website in a readily accessible place to support council's goal of transparency in government.
Okay, is there a second to the substitute motion? Councilmember Way?
I'll second that.
Councilmember Way is seconding it. Councilmember Moore, did you have a comment?
Yes, I do. This is actually
1 minute, please.
This is actually even worse. Okay, so now it's not even going to show up on your agenda. It's just going to get posted on the city website. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes.
So that's really burying the information. So that's a wow. Wow. Okay, I'm surprised.
Excuse me. My understanding is that there are two options here, and correct me if I'm wrong, Vice Mayor Fruin. One is the informational items go in the form of memos to council, and I'm assuming that's from the city manager herself, and then to post the memos as they become available on the city website. So there are two places where the same item would show up, and I don't know if this is your understanding, Vice Mayor Fruin. When they become available on the city website as you've said, in a readily accessible place, and if there are minor tweaks or updates that happen, can they go directly on the city website without having to go through council and so on? I was thinking in terms of efficiency and transparency.
So through the mayor, I believe we can make it work. The idea is to make the memo transparent on the city website so they're readily available to the members of the public.
As well as this other option where would you also be sending out memos to individual council members?
Correct.
Or to all council members?
So we'll provide an off-agenda memo to council and also make that memo available on the city website.
Okay. Let's go on in order. Councilmember Way. Remember, there is a substitute motion in place.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Mohan. So I second it because I think this is a good solution. We have council members who says she cannot comment on information items, and that's a dilemma. So she had to be a public. So this would say we will all receive the same information, and the public would also receive it on the website. So we cover transparency and the desire for council members to ask questions. So my question for the city manager is, anyone, the public and the council members, can still ask you questions, right? First question.
Absolutely.
The second question is, if I think, one of the information items I really wanted to be agendized, I can still get approval from another council members to put on the agenda, whether during the meeting or by email.
That is correct.
So this really gives a transparency and ability for council members to ask questions, to put things on the agenda. So I think this is a really good solution.
Councilmember Moore?
Thank you. So the items, let me understand this. So if this rule were in place right now, today we had informational items, 10 through 13. Would we see those on the agenda or no?
If my understanding from the Vice Mayor is correct, you will not see those items on the agenda.
Okay, so just for instance, we had the City Work Program Q2 update. We had the RISE Development Project, formerly Valco Town Center. Some people are interested in that project. We had the monthly treasurer's report for February. That was a report of receipts, disbursements, cash balances for February. And we had the monthly treasurer's investment report, which was the one I chose to speak on. So none of those items would show up. And we have no definition anywhere of what an informational item is. It's vague, so city staff can now decide all sorts of things are informational and not come to council, and we don't have any rules around it. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Fruin?
So right now, there is no rule on what is an informational item and what isn't. So I don't see that that changes anything. Some things will be there, some things will not be there. Most of them are responses to council member questions to begin with. I think the contention that somehow this is worse is utterly untenable and completely ridiculous. It is emphatically more transparent to put something on a website that is accessible 24/7 at any hour of the day to anybody, that goes back through all of time, as opposed to simply things that show up on an agenda that only some people look at and have to dig through in order to find. And then if you wanted to find out if anybody had questions about it and chose to appear during oral communications, you'd have to look through the video in order to find that. I don't think that that's helpful to anybody. These items are here to inform us. They're not here to be protracted discussion items or to afford a situation like we've seen for the last 2 meetings that is completely confusing to the public and that doesn't respect the roles between council and members of the public.
Councilmember Cha.
So, the information item, some of them used to be on consent, and the council can pull and have a discussion question like Q2 update. And now they are information items. So it's already a reduction in transparency and community engagement. I like that there are a lot of the information memos are on the council agenda because it gets more visibility. But I also like the idea that we post the memos on the website. So I would think one does not exclude the other. I'd like to then propose a motion that approve the staff recommendation plus posting the information memo on the website. I'd like the council member to consider that the member already are complaining about less transparency. That's not worsen the situation. And posting on council agenda doesn't waste anyone's time. It doesn't lengthen the meeting at all.
Excuse me, Council Member Chow, just for my own clarification, I thought that was what the Vice Mayor's motion was. That
No, his motion is completely remove the information item section from the agenda.
That's
so the
correct.
public don't even see. The monthly treasurer's report won't be on the agenda. I really like I think this is an improvement. Also, what does it hurt to put it on? It doesn't.
Put it on the website.
Both website and the agenda. So my substitute motion is to approve the staff recommendation plus posting on website.
Okay. Is there a second for the substitute motion? Councilmember Moore.
Moore, second. Also, with regards to the monthly reports from the treasurer, if you look at like Morgan Hill and some other cities, they do, and when we first started this process, looking at the monthly reports, they actually do post those on their city website so that you can review them all chronologically, which is really helpful. I would still suggest that informational items that council allows them to be pulled, because today it was me that had a comment. Another time, maybe another council member sees something there and they have a comment and they want to have it be publicly made, transparently made, and have everyone hear it. And I want them to have that ability as well. Having having it without discussion by council is not helping us. I don't think it's beneficial for transparency, good governance. I think we need to fix it.
Councilmember Way.
So, if I heard it correctly, Councilmember Moore once said in this meeting that the information item is not part of the original procedure, so it should not be there. So I think we're going back to the basics. Council members will still receive memos. These items are information items for us every day and as needed, and our city manager will send it to us, and it would also be posted on the website. The motion that Councilmember Chow made did not resolve the issues that we have Councilmember Moore, who wanted to be a public to make comments on information items instead of properly make it an agenda item through email or through saying in the meeting. So I don't see a conflict. I think we're kind of complying to council members' complaint that information item was never vetted through the council procedures manual, so now we're getting rid of it, but we will still receive the same information, probably in a more efficient manner because we don't have to wait until the meeting. Probably receive it every other day, every day as needed. So I really think this is going back to what council members' Moore's complaint is. This was never happened. This didn't get vetted. So I actually like Councilmember Vice Mayor Froome's suggestion, let's just get rid of it, go back to the procedures so that it's transparent, but also I understand the public wants transparency, wants to be informed, so put it on the website. It's really, really a good way, and I'm sure our public would go to that website and check it out, and our council members can forward to anybody. This is not a confidential issue, right? So I really think this is goes back to the procedures, like Councilmember said, this is not being a procedure, so let's just do it the right way. I think we're going back to the right way to do it, to get council members getting informed almost every day, and then we have issues, we can talk to the city managers, we can put it on the agenda item as protocol and procedures calls. The public, yes, we have website for them to get to know, the council members can pass it over, these are not in confidential items, so I really think this is a good proposal. It's a good compromise so that we don't have council members who want to be a public and get criticized. I feel embarrassed that our council members are being criticized that way, so that's why I second Council Member Vice Mayor Froome's suggestion.
Mayor, are you allowing additional time? Time is elapsed for council member comments.
Sorry.
Vice Mayor Froome, 1 minute, please.
Yes, just very quickly, the current situation would in fact lengthen time as long as council members continue to speak as members of the public, and it seems like that's becoming the new normal. I don't think it's appropriate. My motion solves the problem, and it allows everyone in the public to still see the information, allows them to see it more quickly. I think that that's the direction we ought to be going. We'll not be supporting the second substitute motion from Councilmember Chow.
Yeah, I wanted to make a comment about the informational items. We did introduce it some months ago as a compromise. This was a way of, instead, city manager could have just sent these items to council members, but instead, this was considered a good compromise where everyone could see these actual items printed on the agenda. So it worked till it stopped working. And now that it stopped working, I think we should just go back to where we were before we introduced the informational item section on the agenda. Okay, Councilmember Chow, you don't have too much time, so we'll give you a minute.
So if any council member still have question or comments on an information item that's posted, they will still have to speak during public comment if they want the entire council to know, right? That does not change.
I would just point out if an item is not on the agenda, then a council member could not speak during public comment because it would be a non-agendized comment under the Brown Act. Let me clarify.
I didn't get it.
Yeah, no, sorry, that was not very clear. So if an item is not on the agenda, a council member cannot speak to four of their colleagues, because that would be a discussion of a quorum regarding an item that's not on the agenda.
For their colleagues.
Four of the other four. So all five of you would be discussing it, which would be a violation.
No, I mean, the council member can still make comments on information item during public comment. That's information item that's posted on the website.
No, if it's on the agenda, they could make comments, as happened today. If it's posted on the website, it's not on the agenda, so that would not be permissible.
Okay.
Last comment, Councilmember Moore.
Thank you. Clarifying question. So wouldn't Councilmember Chow be allowed to speak during oral communications on those items which are on the website? What would be prohibiting her from doing that?
I think the Brown Act would prohibit her from doing that, because she would be speaking to a majority of the members of council about an item that's not on the agenda.
So she would have to petition another council member to discuss. So, for instance, if there was something that looked off in an investment report, she would have to petition another council member to see if they could get it on the agenda, not inform the other council, and hope that 3 months down the road something could be discussed about that, and that's better? I'm not sure. I don't think so.
I don't know if it's better. I'm just those are the rules under the Brown Act.
And I did talk to you, City Attorney Jensen, about the monthly treasurer's report, and you clarified that these are reports which need to go to the council and are not required to be on the agenda. Is my understanding right?
They need to go to the council and then be made available to members of the public upon request. We could comply with that second part by making them available on the city's website. As Councilmember Moore pointed out, that's a fairly common practice in other jurisdictions.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have, Councilmember Wei.
Just one quick question, because I get confused on all this question. So we have not changed anything about council members cannot speak things that are not on the agenda. It's always been the Brown Act principle.
That's correct.
Okay, so we haven't changed anything worse or better. We're just going back to if you want agenda, you agendize with a procedure.
Right, so we have the Brown Act was apply regardless of any changes to our procedures.
We have galore things on the website, and it's always been the procedure of Brown Act that we cannot talk about it unless it's agendized.
That's correct.
All right, thank you.
Okay, we have a substitute motion, second substitute motion, and if we can, was it Councilmember Chow? Can you repeat your motion, please?
Would you like me to share that, Mayor?
Oh, sure, sorry.
Okay, the second substitute motion is Chow moved and Moore seconded a second substitute motion to approve the staff recommendation, which is to adopt resolution number 24-024, amending the Cupertino City Council Procedures Manual plus posting the informational memos to the city website.
Okay, and let's vote by lights on the second substitute motion.
The second substitute motion fails with Moore voting yes.
Okay, the first substitute motion. And that was, okay, go ahead, Madam City Clerk.
Yes, I will I believe I'm still sharing my screen. If video could cue that back up, please. Let me just stop sharing and share again. Okay, so that should appear momentarily. The second substitute motion by Vice Mayor Fruin is to approve the staff recommendation adopting resolution number 24-024 as revised per the city attorney's desk item, updating the city council procedures manual with the following additional revision and direction, which is under section 8.3, order of business, amend the language to remove category 14 entitled informational items, renumber the categories accordingly, and direct the city manager to instead to transmit to council all items that would ordinarily appear as informational items in the form of memos to council, and to post said memos as they become available on the city website in a readily accessible place to support council's goal of transparency in government.
Okay, so let's vote by...
Mayor, can I ask the motioner and seconder to confirm that the motion also includes deleting a reference to information items in section 8.5?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, let's vote by lights on the first substitute motion.
Councilmember Chow, would you please vote? Thank you. Fruin's substitute motion carries with Chow and Moore voting no.
Okay. So we are done. Yes, no, we're done with item 4. Okay, let's move on to item 5, which is the adoption of ordinance number 24-2256 to regularize commissioner appointments and revise commissioner qualifications. And there's a staff recommended action, which is to conduct the second reading. This is the second reading, just to remind everyone, and to adopt the ordinance number 24-2256, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Cupertino to regularize city commission and committee terms and revise commissioner qualifications. There is a staff report, right, City Manager?
There's a brief staff report in the agenda package. There is no staff presentation. This item was introduced for a first reading at the March 5th meeting. There is a supplemental report that addresses council member questions that council received yesterday. Other than that, staff is available to answer questions. I would remind council that this is a second reading, so if there were a desire to make any changes to the ordinance at this point, we would return with a revised ordinance for a first reading and start the process again.
Okay. Do we have to do public comments at this?
There does have to be a time for public comment. I believe it was Councilmember Chow who pulled the item, so she may want an opportunity to speak to the item.
Okay. Can you tell us why you pulled it, Councilmember Chow?
Sure. First, is there any urgency to approve this ordinance right now?
I don't believe there's any urgency to approve this ordinance right now. It was bought as part of a larger package to address commission issues, and it was a work program item. So there was obviously a desire on staff's part to move timely through the work program.
Sure. So I'm hoping that the ordinance could be amended to clarify the following. Right now, the ordinance it's not clear, but you can infer from the many commission-specific when will be able. But essentially, each commission will have 2 openings and 3 openings every 2 years, respectively, except Team Commission Audit Committee. Team Commission with 9 members will have 4 openings and 5 openings every 2 years, respectively. This wasn't mentioned in the current ordinance. Audit Committee has 3 community members, so we'll have 1 opening and 2 openings every 2 years, respectively. And the following commissions will have 2 openings in 2025 and 3 openings in 2027, and repeat the pattern every 4 years. This is only only sustainability and bike path. And the following commissions will have 3 openings in 2025 and 3 openings in 2027. Repeat the pattern every 4 years. And the library, housing, and planning are not mentioned in the current ordinance because they are currently following kind of the pattern. But I thought for an ordinance which is actually a law of the city, it's better to include this clarification that it's clear what each commission's pattern will be. Thank you.
Councilmember Wei?
I'm sorry, can you put that up again? I have a question on the 3 and 3. The following commission will have 3 openings 2025 and 3 openings 2027? That doesn't sound right to me.
Typo.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, 2 and 3 and 3 and 2, yeah.
Okay. Oh, thank you, Councilmember Chow. I was a little confused. And what's your question on this? This looks very clear to me.
No, this is my proposal. What you can see here is the current ordinance. Let me share. Current ordinance, it's... Your microphone. Oh. Microphone, please. You can see that here is a current ordinance that it addresses each commission that needs changing, but it's in no particular order. It's very hard to see that. Yeah, can you tell what's the pattern? It's just we are adopting city code, so it's I think it's better to make that clarification so people reading it have a clear view of, okay, every commission has 2 or 3, and which ones have 2 on this year, which ones have 3 on this year. It's very hard to figure it out from the current description. So since it's not as time sensitive, so I'm hoping we add my clarification. Also that the current ordinance doesn't address, I think, housing, library, and what's the other one? Let me see. My housing, library, and planning are not addressed in the current ordinance because they happen to now follow the 3-2 pattern. And the current ordinance doesn't address the teen commission because we kind of fixed it last year. So now this just, with my addition, I thought it will make it clear for all the future commissioners and future council members that this is what we are following.
Councilmember Moore, and then Councilmember Wei.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Councilmember Chow. I think this is helpful. I just have a question for who has it been our clerk that has had the work to interpret it, or is it our city attorney and the clerk that you figure out how the order works? I think this might be something that's helpful as a informational paragraph on the commission website to help educate the public so they know how the rotation goes. I think it's written that way. So anyway, do you have some suggestions about it?
Sure. Yeah, I think that yeah, I mean, I think this is helpful to clarify what the impact of the ordinance is. I mean, I would point out that Section 1 of the proposed ordinance doesn't amend the municipal code, right? We just aren't on this biannual cycle. It aligns the initial round of appointments to get back on that cycle. The municipal code provides that commissioners serve for 4 years. So once we're on that cycle, that provision takes effect, and we don't have to change that, right? We just have to, for some reason, we got where we are now for, just over various things that happened over the years. And this is just to kind of, I think, bring it back to a more orderly way. But yeah, no, I agree that translating that into who when vacancies actually occur, I think would be helpful for the public. And certainly, we went through the process jointly with the clerk's office, the city manager's office, and my office when we developed that. And, and tried to do it in a way that was at least disruptive as possible to existing commissions, right? I mean, it's not perfect because, you can't, if you don't change anything, we continue to have the same problem, right? But we tried to minimize disruption to the extent we could.
Councilmember Wei?
So a question for my fellow council members, Chow. So you didn't change anything, just clarified things. So that's what I was confused, because when I was reading it, it's very clearly that's what you said. So I don't think the public would get confused, because when we do recruiting, we will specifically say how many commissioners that we're recruiting for park and recreation, for public safety, for TIC. So I think we are following the municipal codes. The extra interpretation is nice. I don't think it changes the materials, facts of our ordinance, and I would prefer not to revisit this. And the memo is great, Councilmember Chow, but I think exactly what the ordinance says.
I think I don't want to speak for the city manager, but I think that the idea that we should effectively communicate the effect on commissioner terms, to interested members of the public is noted, and so if perhaps that addresses your concern, Councilmember Chow, we could take that into account.
And through the mayor, if I just may add that the mayor and myself are actually talking to the commissioner chair tomorrow, and this is on the agenda, to make sure that the commissioners, especially the chairs, are fully aware of the changes that has been made tonight, if not in the future. And we are about to provide a more detailed explanation. I fully understand that this may be confusing and this may need further explanation, which we are planning to do that. I am pretty comfortable with the proposed language during the first reading in terms of how to realign. Like I said, the mayor and I are having that meeting conversation with the chairs tomorrow. We'll definitely take council's desire to further elaborate with the chairs if necessary.
Yeah, my comment on this was, if this was Councilmember Chow, and this looks factual and accurate, if it's just a matter of formatting it in a more understandable manner, I'm okay with formatting the report to make sure that the bullet points and so on, they do make it easier to read.
I do have a question. Do I have time? Because as you can see, these two are imbalanced. We have two commissions in one, and then one category, and a lot more on the other category. Also, this changes that right now people are able to apply to commission every year. With this change, we will only have commission interview every other year. So
That's right.
There is a change on that. So
unless someone leaves in the middle.
Yeah, unless there is vacancy. So are we okay with this imbalance? Just, I want to point that out.
Okay, I'm not sure I see the imbalance, but Vice Mayor Fruin?
Two commissions, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 here, 2 there.
Oh, that's what you mean. Okay, Vice Mayor Fruin?
Yeah, I understand the impulse of the direction. I just think that it should be accomplished as a document that is sort of preambulatory on the website that describes what the commission terms are and what the opportunities are for applying. I don't think we actually need to make a substantive change to the ordinance in order to get to that point. That would just delay it for, I don't think, a particularly good reason. And then City Manager or City Attorney, if you can correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't this an uncodified ordinance in part?
Section 1 is not codified. Yes.
Exactly. So we're addressing all of this there. So it's not like that language. If Councilmember Chow, the thing that you're concerned about is that someone would go and read this ordinance in the municipal code, that piece is not going to be there. So you don't have to worry about it. So if that's the nature of the concern, then I think it would be appropriate to simply accept that I believe that staff have understood that we would like to see some information on the website that would describe what the impact is to the commissions, how to apply, when their terms expire, et cetera, but that we don't necessarily need to change any of the language in the ordinance.
Okay, I'm assuming that is on the website.
Mayor, not to shortcut if there are additional questions, but we do need to take public comment on this item.
Let's go to public comments and then we'll come back again. Are there any public comments, Madam City Clerk?
So yes, Mayor, I see 2 hands raised virtually, Lisa and San R. I'll call on Lisa first. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. So just in general, tonight, prior to this item and during this item, there has been statements several times made that the public has access to staff. They can just ask questions. Staff answers right away, or making it sound like it's easy for the public to communicate with staff directly. And in my experience, that is true of certain staff members and very untrue of other staff members. You don't get, meaning that I ask questions. I don't even do it anymore with certain ones because it's been a pattern. You ask questions of a staff member. It's a couple days, 3 days before you get an initial answer, which is really a non-answer. So you're forced to ask again in maybe a different language, or not literally language, just in a different way, clarify whatever. And it feels like stalling. And then ultimately, I have gotten incorrect answers after a certain amount of time that it should not have taken that long, because then it's a moot point because the activity on council agenda has already happened. So I know I am not alone in that experience. And so for these statements to be made that it's no trouble for residents to contact staff directly and not have to go through the agenda items and to be able to speak publicly, blah, 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 blah. It just, for your knowledge, it is not accurate 100%. I wouldn't say it's even accurate 80%. So,
excuse me, Lisa.
I believe.
Can I interrupt for just a second? We are looking at the commission appointments, commissioner appointments.
I understand
and
that.
Commissioner qualifications. So
I understand that, but it's this whole thing. It's the whole handbook thing, or whatever you're calling it, procedural manual. It's the whole thing, and the whole sense that if a member of the public, who many are just delving into certain things and aren't as informed in general, think that they can just reach out to a staff member for an answer, it's not always successful. I promise you. And it needs to be in public. It needs to be in a public forum. Believe me, I'd rather not talk every time I come to a meeting and have it be recorded and have people throw things back in my face because they don't agree with me. But that's the best way to do it, because it's transparent. And that's what we ask of you and the rest of the city. So that's what we need to be doing too, instead of.
Thank you, Lisa. That is your time. Next we have Sanar. Welcome, San.
Good evening again, Mayor Sheila and council members. I wish to point out that as a part of the attachments, a red line draft should have been provided so that members of the public could easily understand the changes that were being made. I understand the red line draft was provided in the first reading. However, there were further changes made since the first reading based on council member recommendations, and it is not easy to find those specific changes since no further red line draft is provided. From looking at the attachment that is available, and it isn't clear at all from the attachment that the tenure and terms have been extended such that these commission appointments happen every 2 years. But I assume that is the case based on the discussion that just transpired. If that were the case, I want to point out that the commission appointees are, over the last 2 years, almost singularly chosen from a certain side of the aisle. As much as we should have sides of the aisle, unfortunately, commission appointees appointments seem to have become a partisan act. And so by extending the term and reducing the frequency of reappointments, should there be a change in council majority in this November, you're reducing the possibility of a change in the structure and appointments of the commission. So I ask council members to reflect on that and make sure that we're not creating a scenario where we're packing the commissions with appointees from one particular side, and then should a council change its majority, there is no feasibility to change commission appointees every year. So please do not create scenarios where there's such imbalance in commissions. Hopefully we can be more partisan than that. Secondly, I just want to point out a number of these changes to reduce the resident requirements. I do want to voice my objection to that. I believe that you need to be a resident. In a number of cases, such as the Housing Commission, I believe Council Member Way proposed and was accepted that you do not need to be a resident. I strongly oppose that, and I hope that council members today will raise that issue once again and see if this can be revisited once more, because I believe you need to have a skin in the game as a resident, because the objectives of someone running a business and a non-resident, or someone being from an affordable housing org or a nonprofit org, may be very different from those of residents. And I believe you need to put the needs of your voting resident stakeholders first and ahead of any non-voting visitors to the city during the daytime business hours. While they certainly have a number of inputs from a business perspective, we are talking housing. And so I ask that you please revisit that particular requirement. I also ask that you revise once again.
Thank you, Sam. That is your time. Mayor, no further requests to speak for this item.
Councilmember Chow and then Councilmember Moore.
So looking at the schedule again, so that means every 2 years we would have vacancy for all commissions. That's 9 of them. So usually we do that in 2 days, and some commissions don't have opening. But right with the current new one, that means all commissions will have opening on the same year. That's interviewing for all 10. Is that even feasible? Or should we stagger them so that we have some interview in even year, some interview in odd year? It's just something I thought we should think about. Yeah.
Just one question, Madam City Clerk. Are we done with the public comments?
Yes, Mayor.
Oh, okay. All right. So we're bringing it back to Council for discussion. And Councilmember Moore, your light is on.
Okay. So this would be this is the second reading. That's correct. Okay. So I move that the clerk read the title of ordinance number 24-2256, that further reading of the ordinance be waived, and that the City Council conduct the second reading of the ordinance by title only, and that ordinance number 24-2256 be enacted.
Second.
Can we see that on the screen? What is it?
It is the staff recommendation.
Okay, all right. So you had a comment?
Just one comment. I do agree with the last speaker about wanting to have the Cupertino residents be represented on the commission. Just wanted to make that known before we go to a vote.
Okay. Councilmember Way.
Through the mayor, do we have 1 minute?
Yes, you have 1 minute.
Thank
Sorry.
you.
Yeah.
So to respond to that, I think we said it's an optional. If we have a resident who is in the business and is very qualified, I think the council has the option to choose that resident who is qualified. So we're looking at qualifications with the business representative. So I think that option exists. Thank you.
Councilmember Chow, 1 minute, please.
Yeah, and regarding that, the ordinance actually that there is an option of appointing non-resident, but it's I think the ordinance make it clear that it's still Cupertino residents that's still preferred. So I'm okay with that part, which I had concern last time. So please read the ordinance. Actually, it's okay. Yeah.
Vice Mayor Fruin?
Yeah, to the extent that it adds context to the way that things work right now, we have an actual requirement on the Housing Commission that somebody be a business representative, and historically some of these positions have been very difficult to recruit for. There was no residency requirement that was attached to it then. All that this change does is, again, it does pronounce a preference for residents. However, it gives council the option of waiving the residency requirement if we find someone who is a representative of an appropriate business who would be well suited to the commission.
And I think we've clarified, at least the report clarifies that the person has to have some association with the city, with yes. the place of business to be in Cupertino if he or she is not a resident. Okay, I see no other comments, and so is there a motion to...
It's already on the table.
There is a motion and a second.
Oh,
yes.
there is a motion and a second. Okay, so okay, we have a motion and we have a second, and we vote by lights.
Councilmember Chow, would you please vote with your light? Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
Great. Thank you. That concludes number 5. And that concludes the consent calendar items that were pulled. Are we done? It looks like we are done, right? Am I missing something?
Council and staff comments and future agenda items.
Is the city manager report and future agenda items? We are not at 10:30 yet.
I don't have a report, Mayor.
You don't have. Okay. Anything about future agenda items?
I believe there were 3 items that were proposed by the Councilmember Moore in the written communication.
Do we have a second?
Okay. Can you describe those, Councilmember Moore?
Okay, so actually, I would need to pull that up so that I would get it quoted properly. If someone can bring that up out of written communication.
Kirsten, do you have that available?
Thank you. But I
believe the first item was to talk about the artificial turf.
Yes, artificial turf, and then there were 3 environmental related.
And then the second one is to examine the fertilizer level in the fields.
It'd be what are we using for pesticides and herbicides and fertilizer in our fields, and in moving towards a more sustainable.
Kirsten has it up on the screen.
There we go. And then also, the Green Biz Cupertino standards, it looked like those happened in 2010. And that would, if someone was getting Green Biz certified by the city and they've got outdoor landscaping area, I think it might be once we've addressed it, it might be a good area to add on to that certification so that we're covering that outside element of what they're doing. I think that would be great. So those were those agenda items. I actually had some more because I came and spoke at the start, and it was to have the city review the city financial policy and best practices. So we should be diving into our financial policy. I know we look at it annually. We should be looking at this in terms of the question of keeping large sums of money in non-interest-bearing accounts, and what can we do to mobilize the fact that we've got basically a 5% interest rate, and there's various short-term investment vehicles that are available to the city. Like I said, we've got a money market 100% treasury account already in Chandler, but according to our investment report, our investment policy, we can go directly, because you're using Wells Fargo, you can go directly to Wells Fargo and select a 3-month CD, 6-month CD, or a year, or keeping those all at the short-term interest rate so they're still available, or go to the straight 100% Treasury money market, making the 4.94.
Councilmember Moore,
yes.
I would
shorten it.
This is not on the agenda, so we're talking about future agenda items.
I'm hoping to get some
just
interest.
Point of a clarification. So the city's investment policy is coming to council in the next few months. But if you would still like to add it as a CBD with the second, more than happy to do that as well.
Okay.
It is coming to council.
So I think ultimately the question is, how can we nudge that money out of the non-interest bearing account? What do we have?
Yeah. So we can't. Certainly you can request the future agenda item, but we can't deliberate on what the city should do or not do at this time.
What is I guess the agenda item would be,
we're diving into something that's not on the agenda.
I agree. So I think the future agenda item is noted, and if somebody wants to second it, they can.
So I'll second the request to agendize the item to look into investment account, and I think Councilmember Moore also mentioned to form a subcommittee to look into this issue. I think this issue really requires...
Again, I think we need to limit the discussion to adding items to the agenda. I really appreciate that. Thanks.
Okay. And did I get any seconds on, by the way, through the mayor, any seconds on the environmental issues that I had raised?
So I'll second the informational item that you raised.
Which is?
So there were 3 items that Councilmember Moore provided. The second of them was an informational item regarding what fertilizers, pesticides, and herbicides the city uses, and what sustainable alternatives exist.
Okay.
Mayor, may I?
Yeah, please.
My question is that going to be a memo to the council, or is that going to be agendized? Is it proposed as an agenda item, or as a memo to the council?
What is your...
Yeah, is it information?
The way that I conceive of this, given what the scope of future agenda items is that this is a request to agendize asking for the informational item. If staff feel that they can provide this information quickly, they can always do that in advance. There are plenty of items that are asked for on TBD and staff just respond to in advance.
Okay, thank you.
And would that be acceptable for the staff?
We'll look into it.
Right. Okay, Councilmember.
I'll second the third item, which is revisit the Greenpeace Cupertino standards with consideration of landscape management, fertilizers, pesticide, herbicide, artificial turf topics. And in fact, I would entertain a study session on Greenpeace Cupertino standards because I don't know what they are. And a study session probably looking at whether we should update those standards to comply with our Climate Action 2.0 goal.
Can we move all these 3, make one agenda item out of all the 3 items?
So Mayor, I think I have enough support from 2 council members for item 2 and 3, and also the last item that Councilmember Moore just added. I didn't hear a second on the first item.
Okay. I wanted to see if we could include the item about banning artificial turf along with the items number 2 and 3. That would be my motion.
Do we need a motion? It's just,
we don't need
it's not a motion.
Just a request for a future agenda item.
Someone else.
It would be on the agenda.
It would be on the agenda. Right.
They're slightly different in nature, but we'll try to figure out a way to combine it.
All. Okay, thank you. Are we done? Okay, today's council meeting has ended, And I will adjourn. Thank you.